Okay, so I'm recording this externally through OBS. So mas maganda kasing quality ng recording pag OBS as opposed to dito sa Zoom, no? Okay. So if you're starting out, yung menu nyo should look something like this. Naka-drafting mode kayo. So parang naka 2D mode siya, no? So this is our 2D mode. Ito, so if you look at the top ribbon, puro mga 2D tools yung nakalagay, no? Tapos, let me just walk you through the different na parang UI elements dito sa AutoCAD. So, at the top, meron tayong top ribbon. So, most of our tools are located dito sa top ribbon, no? And in the top ribbon, nakaseparate din siya by groups. So, may home group, insert, annotate, parametric, view, manage, etc., etc. Okay? So, this is a good way to, to access your tools. Pero, for the most part, I always encourage my students na instead of using the ribbon, parang shortcuts yung ginagamit, no? And the shortcuts are fairly intuitive. Mas madali siyang gamitin or mas mabilis kayo makaka-work if you use shortcuts, no, instead of the top ribbon. Okay? Pero when you're starting out, pwede naman simula muna kayo dito sa top ribbon muna, no? Okay? Now, dito sa bottom part, meron tayo a bunch of tools din. Pero ang pinaka-importante dito would be etong button na to, no? So it's sort of like a square na merong at the top left corner na merong a smaller square, no? So this if you hover over it, may tooltip na lalabas. Nakasulat dyan is OSnap, no? So OSnap means object snapping. So OSnap is what makes AutoCAD a very precise tool, no? Kasi you can snap your different na parang corners or different endpoints to certain other corners or endpoints, no? So it makes it such that sobrang accurate ng gawa nyo. And you can have different object snapping options. So by default, hindi ko maalala kung ano yung default settings, no? Pero for me, ito yung usually na ginagamit ko. So, pwede naman, if you want, you can check all of them, no? Pwedeng i-check nyo lahat. Pero, sometimes kasi nag-i-interfere yung other object snapping with the other object snapping na options, no? So, for example, if you have nearest neighbor, kunwari, sobrang hirap na mapalabas nyo tong parallel. Okay, so parang in that sense, parang mas okay talaga na i-off mo muna si nearest if you want to do parallel, no? Although you can always override the oversnapping, and ipapakita ko rin mamaya kung paano siya i-override, no? Pero for now, this is a good setting, no, na if you're still starting out, this would be a good setting na naka-on siya. So ako personally, endpoint will always be on. I use it all the time. Midpoint, there are cases wherein in-off ko si midpoint, pero I think for the activity today, i-on ko siya. Then, center, for me, always on yan. Node. Node is essentially mga points to, no? So, minsan, naka-off siya sa akin. For now, i-on ko lang siya kasi hindi naman siya ganun ka overlapping with the other tools. Quadrant is the quadrants of our circle. So, we'll be doing circles today. So, i-on ko lang din to. Then intersection is if you have two lines or a circle and a line or an arc and a polygon, mag-intersect sila, then you can find the intersection point. This is always on for me. Perpendicular, this is when you are trying to find the perpendicular na you are snapping a line, for example, doon sa isang feature like an edge or a circle, then this is on for me, always on to sa akin. And lastly is si parallel. Si parallel minsan in-on ko, minsan in-off. For now, i-on natin siya. Right? Now, this is your workspace. Itong dito sa gitna. So, this is an infinite na workspace, no? So, you can infinitely move pan to the left, you can infinitely pan to the right. You can also infinitely zoom, no? Okay? So, be careful lang sa pag-zoom and zoom in and zoom out kasi posible na malolost kayo. No? Kunwari, nag-infinite zoom kayo pa loob tapos hindi nyo na alam kung nasaan yung object nyo. Let's say, for example, you start with a circle, no? Kunwari, may circle kayo na ganyan. Tapos biglang nag-infinite zoom kayo tapos hindi nyo mahanap yung circle nyo, no? So the way you do that is, kung gusto nyo mag-zoom back out, is you just look for the zoom menu. And where's the zoom? Di ko actually alam kung nasaan yung zoom menu, no? Kasi I use shortcuts. So if you want to open the zoom tool, you just press Z. Tapos unang lalabas si zoom, no? So you press Z, eto zoom. Then you right click. Then you pick this zoom extents, no? So ibig sabihin ng zoom extents is parang i-zoom out niya enough na makikita lahat ng objects na nakasulat mo. For now, circle lang kasi yung object natin. So if you do zoom extents, mag-zoom out siya dito sa circle. So you'll know where your circle is. Okay, so let's just delete this. Okay, so to navigate the workspace, we'll be mostly using our third mouse wheel, no? Or yung third mouse button natin. So the mouse wheel, if you scroll up, then you're zooming in. If you scroll down, then you're zooming out. And I think it depends din kung ano kayo, naka-Mac kayo or naka-Linux or Windows. No? Kasi I think you can set the behavior kung ano yung gusto nyong gawin sa zoom up. If it's parang natural or yung nakalimutan ko, yung natural scrolling at tatawag nila nun. So it might vary, pero one of them will be zoom in and one will be zoom out. Okay? Now, if you hold the mouse wheel button or the third click nyo, no? Minsan tinatawag siya as the third click. If you hold it, makikita nyo na magbabago yung mouse nyo. It will become a hand, no? Magiging hand tool siya. And wait lang para lang mas makita nyo. Let me change my cursors. Ay, hindi rin pala kita. Naka-highlight yung mouse ko, no? Dito. Tama? Para may green highlight siya. So hopefully that will help you, ang tawag dito, keep track of my mouse. Pero pagdating dito sa workspace, nagbabago na kasi yung cursor, so baka hindi nyo siya makakita masyado, no? Anyway, so again, if you hold the third mouse button, pwede kayo mag-pan, no? This is called panning, so you can move the workspace from left to right. Pero if you don't have a third mouse button, kunwari left click and right click lang meron sa mouse nyo, then you can always access the pan tool by pressing P. So this is P, pan, so you can now left click, pwede kayo mag-move around the So notice again na puro shortcuts yung gamit ko, no? And again, the shortcuts are fairly intuitive. The first shortcuts na ginawa pa natin ngayon was zoom and pan, no? And usually, the shortcut is equal to kung ano yung name ng tool. So if it's zoom, then Z. Then if it's pan, then it's P. Ganyan. So if you can't find the specific tool by the particular na kasi kunwari, there are certain tools that have the same starting letters. So, posibleng mag-overlap sila, no? So, the way AutoCAD works is you can actually type multiple strings of text when finding shortcuts. So, for example, if kunwari lang si P hindi ko mahanap for pan, then I can type one more letter. Kunwari, ang next letter ng pan is A. So, if I type in PA, then N, pan, then I can find the pan tool. Parang ganyan. So, ano ba yung may overlapping? I think the C circle is copy. Yeah, that's another tool, no? So, kunwari, if you want to copy a certain object, kunwari, I have a circle. As gusto ko i-copy tong circle na to. If I type in just C, circle yung unang lalabas. So, if I type in O, C-O, copy, si copy na yung next na tool na lalabas, no? So, I can copy this like so. Okay, so kumbaga you can always find the tool, no? As long as you know the name of the tool, pwede nyo i-type yung name para lumabas yung tool na yun. Okay, now if you want to exit out of a tool, so for example, if I'm in the circle tool, I will always be in the circle tool, no? Parang ganyan. And if I want to exit out, kumari, nag-press ako ng circle tool, tapos gusto ko mag-exit out, you just press escape, no? Para nasa cursor mode na kayo ulit. Now in AutoCAD, meron siyang ano din, um, two types of selections. We have the right selection. If you move to the right, so kunwari, if I click here, and by the way, yung si AutoCAD, usually yung marquee selection tools natin is single click lang, no? So single click ko dito, then single click after lumabas yung selection box. Pero there is also yung lasso selection tool, which is accessed by holding the left click. So if I hold the left click, magiging lasso tool siya na ganyan. So there is use cases for both, no? If you just want simple marquee lang, usually yung ginagamit natin. But if you want to, kunwari, let's just say na gusto i-select yung second circle, no? Etong circle lang to na nasa baba. So I'll have to use a lasso tool para maiwasan ko yung ibang circles. Parang ganyan. Okay? So let me show you the difference between the right selection tool. So again, right selection is when you move to the right, and it's depicted by a blue box. Tapos the left selection tool naman is when you move to the left. When you move to the left, it's depicted by a green box. So notice how if I move to the right, magiging blue siya. Move to the left, magiging green siya. Okay? So the right selection is, the way it works is you will only select an object if you have fully selected it, or or it's fully enclosed in the selection box. So for example, if I do this, tingin nyo ano yung masa-select. This is a right selection tool. So,
Yung gitna lang.
Yung gitna, tama. That's correct, no? Kasi left selection tool ginamit natin. So, yung gitna lang kasi yung fully naka-enclose doon sa ano natin, no? Sa selection box natin. Okay? But if I use the left selection tool, notice how lahat sila masa-select na. Dahil si left selection tool is as long as a portion of the object is within the selection tool, then masasama siya sa selection. So this is useful because parang for left selection, parang wala, kung gusto natin na i-select lang, usually if I just want to select many objects at the same time, I use the left selection tool. Pero if I want to be precise, I use the right selection tool, no? And if I want to be more precise, minsan sa ginagamit ko is yung lasso tool. So paling lasso na ganyan or lasso na ganyan. Okay, so it just depends on the goal, no? Another way of selecting is you just select multiple, no? So for example, if I click this, then I click another one, then it will add, no? And usually malalaman nyo naman kung ma-add siya or not. Kasi may doon sa cursor nyo, may plus icon na lumalabas. Hindi ko lang kung kita nyo, no? It's a very small icon along the cursor. That means that you are adding it to the selection. And if it's added to the selection, then ang lalabas is ano siya, no? Ano tawag dito? Highlight siya in blue. Okay? Now, if you want to deselect, so medyo weird itong si AutoCAD, no? Kasi di ba in normal tools na ginagamit natin, like for example, sa Microsoft Office, ano ba bang, kunwari Adobe na products, or kahit si Canva, I think, normal behavior is ma-add lang sa selection yung isang object if you press shift, tama? Parang ganun yung normal behavior. Pagka kinlik mo yung object, tapos gusto mo magdagdag sa next selection, usually nag-hold down tayo ng shift, then click that object. Pero si AutoCAD, it's different, no? Yung shift actually removes the selection. So for example, if I have this one, if I press shift, hold shift, notice how lalabas dun sa cursor ko may parang minus na icon. So meaning I'm removing it from the selection. So parang ganun, I'm removing it if I press shift. Okay? So those are some differences na minsan nakakaano siya, no? Disturb sa workflow nyo kasi some of the parang behaviors ni AutoCAD is opposite sa normal behaviors natin na kasanayan natin ng mga programs, no? But you'll get used to it. So dati sobrang no, parang nalilito ako doon, parang nag-shift ako, shift click, tapos nagugulat ako hindi siya na select, tapos yun pala kailangan pala hindi naka-hold yung shift. So okay? So, if you're unsure, kunwari, if you want to reset every action, kunwari, kunwari, ayaw nyo pala itong selection na to, what you do is you just press escape, no? So, whenever, kunwari, gusto nyo i-reset, may iba kayong gustong gawin, ang suggestion ko is always, parang spam nyo na yung escape button, no? Para sure na naka-exit out na kayo. So, naka-exit out kayo sa tool, naka-exit out kayo sa selection. So, Usually makikita nyo dito sa gitnang part. So in this part, by default naka enable siya. This is the command na line, and the command line meron din siyang mga a few lines na nakasulat. So for example, if you look at this, yung last 3 na lines na sinulat ko nakasulat dito. So kunwari, command cancel is nagpe-press ako ng escape dito. So if I press circle kunwari, tapos naggawa, tapos meron tayong mga commands dito. Circle, specify center, then specify radius. Right? Let's delete that. Okay? So most commands naman, they tell you what they want you to do, no? So for example, if I go into the line tool, so line is obviously L yung shortcut niya, no? Pero again, you can always access it dito sa top bar, no? Ito sa ribbon if you want it. So line. So if you look at the line tool, merong nakalagay dyan sa gitna na specify first point. Tama? So ibig sabihin nito is that i-click nyo or ilalagay nyo as a coordinate kung saan nyo gustong ilagay yung first point. Okay? So if you're creating a line is you're creating 2 points, no, and you'll draw a line within those 2 points. So if I click it here, yun yung first point ko. And notice now, nagbago na yung next command ko. Nang nakasulat dyan is specify next point naman. Okay? So if it's specify next point, then you just select the next point and so on and so forth. Parang ganyan. Okay? So you can create something like that. Okay? Now, other tools, ganun din. No? So kunwari, if you access the arc tool, so arc tool is A. So arc. So if we press the arc tool, ang sabi dito is specify a point on the arc. So the start point of the arc. So usually by default, yung arc tool kasi natin is naka 3-point arc tool siya, no? If naka 3-point arc tool siya, meaning you specify, kasi when you're creating an arc, you actually need 3 points. Okay? So hindi siya tulad ng line na 2 points lang. 3 points yung kailangan para mabuo yung arc. So you specify the first point, then the second point, then the third point. So let's just start now. So kunwari, start point ko here. Tapos specify the second point. Kunwari, gusto ko dumaan dito. And you specify the third point, which is gusto ko mag-end siya dito. And you can create the arc now. There are variations to the arc tool. So kunwari, if you do the arc tool, you can actually change, no, the behavior. Kunwari, ito. There are different na options, no. Pwedeng 3 points yung specify mo. Pwedeng start, center, end. This is my preferred method of creating arcs. Kasi this is more intuitive, no. Parang create tayo ng center. No, sorry. Hindi pala yung preferred ko na to. Pero pwede din to. Ang preferred ko is this one, no. Yung start, end, and radius. Kasi usually, gusto natin controlled yung paggagawa ng arc, no? So gusto natin na specify natin yung 2 points of the arc and the radius. Sorry. That was a lie. Ang gamit ko is yung center and radius. Eto nga rin ba yun? Start and then radius. Eto. This is not that one. Ba't hindi nakasulat dito? Start, center, and starts. Pakita ko na lang kung paano ko siya ginagawa, no? So usually hindi ako nag-access dito. I usually access it through the command tool. So I do arc. So parang ganyan. Then instead of specifying the first point or the start point, ang ginagawa ko is I actually enter the center first. Ito. So if you look at the bottom, usually mga tools natin, merong tinatawag na mga chips, no? Or options. So, etong chips na to, you can click it. Pwede nyo i-click lang siya if you want to access that additional option. Or pwede din ipindutin nyo lang whichever letter is capitalized, no? So, if you press the letter that is capitalized, it will, and press enter afterwards, then it will access that chip, no? Or that additional option. So, what I usually do is, I press C first, then enter. So, this time, I'm selecting a center. Now, what I'll do is, I'll select, kunwari, I'll select a particular radius, kunwari, 200 na radius. And now, I can create my arc, no? Pwedeng ganyan yung arc ko. Or pwede dun sa kabila, like so. Okay? So, that's how I usually do arcs, no? Okay? So, I think marami pang tools na pwede natin explore, no? Pero I think the best way we can learn in doing AutoCAD is through examples, no? So, let me just pull out an example. Dito ko na ilalagay ito. Hanapin ko lang yung ano no, yung go-to exercise ko for 2D. It's a gear example. Nasaan ba ito? And those na naging under ko sa AutoCAD, you probably seen the gear, the wrench, no? This one. Let me just save this image. Desktop na lang. Okay. The way we can import image is through insert, tapos attach natin siya. And I'll go to my desktop and I'll just say all image files. Picture 2 ba yun? 918. So ito, learn AutoCAD ito. So we just open. Yan. Just press OK. And I'll just insert it sa 00, no? So malayo pala yung 00 ko. So I'll just zoom extent ulit para kasi feel ko naka-zoom in ako. Or hindi ko ata na-touch. Na-escape ko ata. Wait lang ah. Ulitin ko lang. 0, 0. And scale factor of 1. Extents. Ayun. So this is now my image. No? So it's a small image. So kaya siya naka-zoom quite medyo mataas yung zoom niya, no? So you know it's a big zoom kasi if you look at it, yung grid lines natin medyo ano siya, malalaki na yung grid lines, no? Kunwari ganyan. So you know you're zoomed out pagka malilit yung grid boxes natin. Okay, so naka-zoom in tayo, which is okay lang. Zoom extent ulit natin. Zoom extents para mag-zoom in tayo dito. So I'll just put that to the side. So you can also do this, no? So kunwari, usually, pwede naman naka side by side yung image, no? Kunwari, another way we can do this also is pwedeng ilita natin yung ano natin, window na nakaganyan tayo. Tapos si image natin is off to the left na lang. Okay? Pero personally, I'll just attach it, no? So, para mas madali din siya. So, usually, kunwari, you start off with a sketch, kunwari. Nag-drawing kayo on paper that you take a picture of it. Ang maganda dito sa ganitong methodology is that you can actually attach the image onto the AutoCAD workspace. Tapos, pwede nyo i-trace over. So, kunwari, if I do a circle, kunwari dito, pwede ko i-trace over na. Although, kailangan i-reverse nyo yung image, no? Para hindi white. So, kunwari, pwedeng i-change ko yung color. I change the color, let's say, yellow. Or yung mas halata, blue, kunwari. So, now, if I move this, pwedeng i-drawing ko on top, no? So, pwede naman i-drawing ko on top, pero that's not how we do it, no? Kasi ito, given naman yung dimensions. So, we'll have to recreate this through the dimensions. Pero, I would imagine, kunwari, hindi kayo strict sa dimensions, pero gusto nyo lang yung sa sketch nyo, gusto nyo, kunwari, dun sa, kung na tayo, no, yung actual casting natin, tapos may sketch kayo ng gustong i-capture, then pwedeng i-import or attach nyo yung sketch nyo, tapos pwede nyo trace over, no, using mga circle tools, etc., etc. Okay? So, eto, for our case, ang gagawin ko is, I'll just recreate this using yung given yan na dimensions, no? So, itatesting ko lang muna. So, I'll do radius of 30 kung gaano kalaki. Masyadong malaki yung radius compared sa image. So, I'll have to resize this image, no? Kasi yung mga dimensions na binigay na dito, hindi ko pa sure kung ano siya, no? Kung 20 millimeters pa siya or 20 units. And by the way, you can access the units through UN. Tingnan natin kung ano yung naka-units ko ngayon. Naka-units ko ngayon is in millimeters, no? So, you can change this. Pwedeng naka-inches siya. Pwedeng naka-cm, etc. So, I'll just say naka-millimeters ako ngayon. And I'll just assume na naka-millimeters din to. So, if different yung, kunwari, meron kayong specific na ano, gustong i-recreate na object tapos naka-inches siya, then you just change the units, no? Change nyo into inches dapat. Para kung ano yung dinrawing nyo dito, yun din yung i-draw nyo. And this is very important, no? Units, in ES1, hindi ganun ka-importante yung units, no? Kasi we're always doing it on pen and paper. Pero dito sa exercise natin sa MetE177.1, we have to be very specific of our units, no? Kasi when we are 3D printing this, we will import the same na units na pinili natin. So if naka-inches siya, then yung object na iti-3D print natin, naka-inches din dapat. Okay? Although pwede naman i-scale yun, no, using the provided software ng 3D printed na ano. Pero if you want it na parang exact talaga kung ano yung object natin, then dapat proper units yung nakalagay. Right? So again, UN for units. So again, sabi ko nga sa inyo, very ano naman siya, no? Intuitive siya. If I press U, undo to, this is the undo button. So if I want to find units, then I'll just press the next letter of units, N, and lumabas naman units na yung next, no? Okay? So units, then find whatever units you're using, no? Right? So let's start. Let's start with first itong circle na to. Okay? So we can start with the left circle, then the right circle, no? Kasi yun yung medyo madaling i-drawing. So we can, and I'll just move my origin, no? Lagay ko lang yung origin ko dito. Okay? So I'll draw a circle, and nakasulat dito, the circle daw has a radius of 30, no? So itong R30 na to signifies that it's radius 30. So if I draw a circle, and by default, ang input na, ang dynamic input dito, so we call this as dynamic input, no? Kasi kunwari if you increase the size of the circle, makikita nyo na nagbabago yung numbers sa loob, yung naka-highlighted in blue na numbers. Pero you can actually input a specific number, no? And this is how we usually want to do AutoCAD, no? Ayaw natin na mag-estimate tayo, i-increase lang natin hanggang mag-30 siya, like so. Kasi hindi siya accurate kasi 30.0807 to. Okay? We want to input the exact number. So, we just input 30, kunwari ganyan. And usually, you can press enter to finalize it or space. Pero usually, what I like to do is press tab, no? So, tab sort of locks the input. So, para lang may preview ako kung ano yung itsura nyo. So, if I do 30 tab, parang it will show me a preview of what 30 radius looks like. So usually, ganun yung ginagawa ko. It's good practice. Pero kayo, if you want to finalize it agad-agad, pwede naman. Kasi if I do, kunwari, 30, then enter, automatic mag-ano siya. So yun. So I just like to preview it first. That's why, in most cases, tab yung ginagamit ko before finalizing it with enter. Okay? So that's my circle. Tapos, let's draw the other circle to the right. And the other circle to the right is 129 daw. From center to center na distance nila. 129 siya yung length. So what we can do is, we can draw a point or a line from the center of this first circle right here, papunta dito sa point na to. And where the endpoint lands, yun yung gagawan natin ng another circle, no? So again, we use the line tool. So line is L. Enter. Then, notice how hindi pa kita yung ano, no? Hindi natin alam kung nasaan ang center dito. So, the way we access the center is we hover over the circle itself. Once you hover over the circle, may lalabas na ngayon na center point dun sa gitna. So, we can click this one. We move it 129. So, we can do 129. So, if you press enter agad, ang mangyayari dyan is baka ma-capture niya tong 2 degrees, no? So, kaya itatab ko lang muna. I press tab, 129 tab. Then, I press 0 for 0 degrees. So, meaning perfectly horizontal yung line ko. Then, I can tab it again. Parang isa-cycle ko lang. So, tabbing is actually cycling through the different na inputs that you can enter dynamically, no? So, parang ganito. 129 and 0, and I'm happy with that. So, ipapress ko na enter to finalize yung dimensions na to. So, press enter. And the line tool usually is, parang successive siya. So, you can create multiple lines in succession. But ayaw ko naman na mag-create na ng new line. So, I just press escape. Okay? Now, I want to create a circle dito sa endpoint na to. So, what I'll do is, I press C again for circle. Then you can press enter, and this is a tip I can give you as well, class. No, instead of pressing center, you can actually instead of pressing enter, you can actually press the space button. No, and space button for me is more accessible. No, kasi the workflow is ang intended workflow is your right hand should be on your mouse, and your left hand should be on the keyboard. Tama? And if you look at it, if your left hand is on the keyboard, yung space is much more accessible than the enter. No, if you do enter, parang you have to move your hand to the right para ma-access yung enter. Pero if you just press space, parang katabi lang siya ng thumb mo, yung natural placement ng hand mo, no, katabi lang siya ng thumb mo. So it makes it very much easier to access the different tools. No? So I usually like to press space instead of enter. So C space yung ginagawa ko. Then, hover over this endpoint, gagawa tayo ng panibagong circle, and sabi daw dito sa diagram natin, the new circle should have a radius of 20. So, type in ko lang 20. Then, we can finalize that. Okay? So, we're done with the two circles. Ang gagawin naman natin ngayon is to create this, itong polygon inside and it's a hexagon. No? Create tayo ng hexagon inside the circle. No? Okay, and it has a center to edge distance of 20. Whereas dito sa kabila, notice how this is center to vertex naman yung distance na to. And different siya na process if you do center to edge versus center to vertex. Okay? So if you want to do center to edge, ang gagawin natin is if you try to enter the polygon tool, no? So the polygon tool is accessed by if you try P, then it's pan. If you type in O, it's point. Then you type the next letter, which is L, and that gives you polygon. Okay? So polygon, let's do polygon, and you enter the number of sides. Yun yung first argument niya or first dynamic input na nire-request niya. So, we'll input 6, no? Tama? Kasi it's a hexagon. So, we'll input 6. Enter. Tapos, specify natin yung center ng polygon. So, by default, mamaya, ipapakita ko na lang. So, ipapress natin to as a center. Now, after clicking the center, may lalabas na two options dito. No? It's either inscribed in a circle or circumscribed about a circle. Okay? So, the way you imagine it is, inscribed in a circle means that the polygon is inside a circle. No? So, kunwari, may circle ka outside this hexagon right here to show kung paano yung to create the polygon itself. No? So the way AutoCAD works is you're actually drawing a circle, tapos within that circle, magdodrawing siya ng polygon inside. So that's the inscribed in circle option. If you do circumscribed about a circle, parang ang nangyayari is yung imaginary circle mo to draw the polygon is actually inside the polygon itself. No? So that's why it's circumscribed about the circle. So meaning, if you remember your ES1, circumscribed means that it's outside. So meaning, si polygon is outside of the circle. Okay. So in this particular case, should we do inscribed or circumscribed? Pagka ganito. Kasi edge, center to edge tayo eh. So dapat
Circle.
Tama. Sino yung nagsabi nun? Hindi ko na...
Nini, sir.
Si Nini pala. Tama si Nini, no? It should be circumscribed kasi gusto natin na center to edge. So, yung circle natin is nandito sa loob. So, it's actually touching the parang midpoints of or the tangent points of the edges of our no? So, we do circumscribe. Tapos, gagawa tayo ng we can specify the radius. So I'll just specify this. I don't know. Usually naman it's perpendicular distance. Ano? So if you do move it to the left, magpa-follow siya ng perpendicular distance, which is or parallel to the line that we've created. Or we can move it upwards para same siya sa image. No? So let's type in 20 for our radius. And we press enter. And now you have created the center to edge. Okay?
Sir,
Yes, go.
paano po yung ano, yung shortcut para yung different option kung magi-inscribe or circumscribe?
Ay, alam ko pwede yun eh. So, let's try no. I think kung ano lang yung starting letter. So, kunwari ito. Then, let's do, kunwari dyan. If I press I, ayan. You just press the letter, no? So, C or I. So, I is for inscribe. Notice na nagbabago yung, ano, no, yung parang dot na pointer. So, if it's I, inscribe siya. If you do C, then it's circumscribe. So, that's a shortcut.
Sir,
So,
paano po mapunta dun sa ano, yung enter an option po?
kapag kinlik mo na yung center mismo, once
Okay.
na click mo na yung center mo, lalabas na yung two options na yun. Then you press I or C. Okay? So, let's do the other side naman. This is the polygon. And again, if this is center to edge, this now is center to vertex, no? So, kung center to vertex na siya, dapat inscribe na yung gawin natin. Tama? Kasi gusto natin yung circle is nasa labas ng polygon natin para yung contact point ni circle natin is at the vertex instead of the tangent points of the edges. Tama? So, let's do it again. Polygon ulit. So, P-O-L. Then, let's press number of sides. This time, 5-sided polygon lang to. This is a pentagon. So, 5. Press 5. Enter. Then, hanapin ko yung center. I'll click this center right here. Then, lalabas yung option. And let's use the shortcut key dito, no? So, in this case, dapat inscribe na, no? Tama? Should be inscribe. I. Then, we specify the radius. Ang gagawin natin is, we move upwards. Kasi dun sa image, naka-pointed upwards din yung parang top ng pentagon natin, no? And let's enter the radius, which is 15. So that's 15. So the radius or the parang center to vertex na distance. Okay? And now we have our polygon. Actually, medyo patapos na tayo dito, no? Malapit na tayo. Now, let's try to create the parang tong rectangle, no? In this object. Rectangle siya. How do we go about it? Ano ba yung given? It's given 20 daw yung distance niya or yung parang thickness niya. So, what we can do is, there are many ways to do this, no? We can do parang a line tapos offset natin siya. Pero perhaps the simplest way to do this na hindi na masyadong mahirap is to just create two rectangles, no? One rectangle dito sa taas that is 10. Another rectangle sa baba that is 20. Okay, I think that's the easiest way of doing it, no? So, for example, ang gagawin ko is I'll do rectangle. So, REC ang rectangle, no? So, it's REC kasi yung R is redraw yung first command. Redraw is actually parang refresh, no? So, for example, if you notice na may mga certain bugs doon sa drawing nyo, like for example, hindi siya nag-update, nung nag-zoom in, zoom out kayo, biglang na-stuck siya sa isang image or parang may isang image na parang mali yung itsura niya. Like for example, kunwari, mga points, parang masyadong malaki yung markers nyo. Then, you can actually press redraw, no, to correct the images, no. So, I think I can show you a good example of how redraw works. So, kunwari, if I have a point, and I'll do p-type. And kunwari, this is in percentage, no. So, kunwari, if I zoom in, tapos, let's do redraw. Right. Ay, naka-ano pala to. P-type. Naka-relative naman siya. Ayun. Kunwari, ganyan. So, if I zoom out, kasi yung p-type ko is naka-percentage ano. So notice how yung itong crosshair ko masyadong maliit. So actually, pwede ko i-reset siya by redrawing it. And if I redraw it, dapat ba tayo? Redraw. For some reason, hindi siya gumagana ngayon. No? Pero this should change in size no based on the parang current window size. Mag-change size dapat itong ano. For some reason, hindi siya gumagana. Probably baka dahil hindi ako naka full screen. Hindi ako sure kung yun ba yung reason no kung bakit hindi siya nagre-redraw. Let me just check my p-type again. Yung p-type ko set to relative naman. Tas 5%. Ibig sabihin nito 5% of the window size no. Yun yung ano. So, dapat pag nag-redraw ako, it should change, no? Anyway, mamaya natin figure out yun. So, yun yung redraw. So, again, rectangle tayo. If we do a rectangle, we do R. Pag R redraw, pag nag-press tayo ng E, E is regen. Actually, hindi ko alam kung ano yung regen, no? Parang never ko pa ata nagamit tong tool na to. Pero rectangle is R-E-C. See you next letter. Okay, so again, yun yung sinasabi ko sa inyo, you can always access a tool as long as you know the name of the tool, no? So, REC. So, ang gagawin natin is, we'll just start from here, no? Okay lang yon kasi we have certain tools like extend and trim para, ano tayo, kumbaga, makuha natin yung exact image natin dito, which is yung nakadikit siya dapat dun sa, ano, no? Sa two circles. So, I'll just draw a circle, a rectangle, REC. Tapos, ang gusto ko lang idikit siya dito. No? So, we can input the exact numbers. Kaya naman natin maano to, no? Kasi, if we do it, if this is 129, so let's pull out our calculators. So, if 129 ito, so that's 129, minus the 2 radii, which is minus 30, minus 20. So, yung total nito should be 79. From this point to this point. Tama? So, pwede naman i-input natin siya. So, if I do rectangle, pwedeng input natin 79 yung length, tapos yung height niya would be 10. Parang ganyan. Okay? So, that would be our rectangle. Parang ganyan yung sura. 79 by 10. You can do that. Pero, a faster way of doing it, and I'll do it on the bottom side no, para mas mabilis siya, is I do a rectangle. Tapos, I'll move towards this node. Without clicking it, hover ko lang siya over it. And if I hover over it, it will actually track it, no? So, yan yung tinatawag natin na tracking. So, notice how dito sa baba, may parang green dotted line or green dash line, no? That is our tracking line. So, in most tools in Excel tuloy, in most tools for AutoCAD, usually, natatrack kaya niya mag-track ng certain elements. No? So, it could either be a node, perpendicular distance, pwede din mga parallel, mga extension lines. Usually, natatrack nila na yun. No? And to access it, yung mga tracking options na yun, you just hover over a point and AutoCAD is smart enough na parang alam niya kung ano yung gusto mong gawin. So, dito, alam ni AutoCAD na what I'm trying to do is I'm tracking this edge right here. So, that's why naka-lock si 79. Parang semi-locked si 79. And with that, I can jump into the other point, which is this one. And I'll just type in 10. Parang ganyan. So, that's one way to do it. No? Although, hindi ko ata na-track pala na maayos. Ulitin natin. I'll do 79. Baga nag-tab pala kayo, mawawala yung ano. Then 10. Okay? So, probably faster yung 79 by 10, no? Pero, yan. So, that's how we do it. Now, we can remove this line now. Kailangan pa natin yung line nito mamaya kasi we'll have to create the other rectangle, no? Tama. Pero, we can probably trim this, no? Itong line na to. So, we can select this line tapos i-move natin siya to the left. Pwedeng ganyan. So, you can select endpoints tapos i-move nyo lang yung endpoint na to. Or, another way of doing it is to use the trim command. No? So, trim command is when you want to trim certain portions, parang ika-cut nyo siya and it is sort of dynamic siya, no? Parang smart enough automatic lang siya na ititrim niya up to the next na parang critical point. So a critical point could be either an intersection, a node, a deflection point, etc., etc. So for example, if I use the trim command here, ang next na, and I trim this one, ang next na madedetect niya na critical point is this one. Kasi ito nag-intersect yung two lines. So matitrim niya to. And if I use another trim command, ititrim niya hanggang dito kasi next yun na intersection point. Okay, and it will show you a preview naman. So, parang hindi kayo kailangan matakot no sa trim command. So, if I do trim command, so trim command is accessed through TR. So, that's the trim command. If you hover over, parang lalabas is parang may preview siya no na parang i-gray out niya yung matitrim nyo na object. Okay, so this one, I want to trim this. Mawawala siya, left click. Then, I want to also trim this. So, trim is very powerful, no? Para mas mabilis siyang nakaka-access or nakaka-delete ng certain object. I want to also trim this, no? Kasi eventually gusto kong ito nakadikit na siya dito. Tama? So, I'll trim this one. I'll also trim this one. Trim ko na din to and trim ko to. Okay? Now, I have two parallel lines na ganyan. Now, this is, hindi pa siya correct, no? Kasi dapat nakadikit siya dyan. Then afterwards, if you look at this one, no? Nakadikit kasi siya. Although may fillet siya dito, no? And we can add the fillet later. Pero gusto natin for now, ididikit natin siya dyan. Okay, so the way we do it is parang opposite naman sa trim. If trim is finding the next na critical point, then deleting that object from two critical points. Parang dito naman sa extend, it's extending your line or your object up to a critical point. So for example, ito, pag in-extend natin to, hahanapin niya yung next na critical point, which is etong edge na to. So if I do extend, extend is accessed through EX. So extend. Ano kaya yung E? E is erase pala yung command. So usually class, ito hindi ko pala na-mention, no? The commands are arranged by how much AutoCAD thinks you'll use the command, no? So for example, si E, erase is much more used than extend. So kaya siya yung unang lumalabas pagka E lang yung tinype mo. Then extend pagka EX. So si extend is much more used than kunwari extrude. So si extrude is EXT pa siya lalabas. Parang ganyan. Okay? So extend is pagka kinlik ko to, hahanapin niya yung next edge. So for example, ito, extend. Kasi ito, I want to extend this as well. Dito, I want to extend this as well. Tapos ito naman, extend. So notice how if I move this here, pag in-extend ko siya, hanapin niya yung next na critical point or next na edge, no? Which is, mag-extend ko siya. So, you might want to do that. So, extend, trim, and extend, very useful tools, no? Para mabuo yung object mo. Complete yung parang ano nila, no? Wala kayong enclosed space or wala kayong open gaps. Okay? So, that's extend and trim. So, next natin is, kailangan natin i-drawing ito na sa gitna, no? This is one trick I can teach you. I think the fastest way of doing this is through creation of the rectangle first, then moving it to the center na lang. Okay? So, ang gagawin natin is we'll create the rectangle first, and the rectangle daw is 70 by 10. Tama? So, I can just create it here. So, I'll do 70 by 10. Parang ganyan. So, that's my rectangle. Tapos, what I want to do is, I want to access my geometric center, no? Kasi gusto kong i-move to by its geometric center. So, kailangan ko naka-access yung geometric center na na object snapping dito, no? So, I'm enabling geometric center para pwedeng i-move ko to. So, I'll select the object, then press M. M is for move. M. Tapos, hanapin ko yung geometric center niya. I'll just hover over the object. Tapos, lalabas itong point na to. This is the geometric center. Now, what I want to do is move it by its center papunta dito sa midway point ng line na to. I've enabled my midway point, so dapat lalabas siya. So, that's my midway point. That's the triangle, no? So, usually may mga ano naman siya, tooltips na lalabas. Kunwari, if I hover over it, yung sa triangle na to, that tracking point right there, and may lumabas na tooltip na midpoint. Hopefully, nakikita nyo yan, no? So, now I can press enter, no? So it's much easier than creating kasi if we want to do this na kunwari two halves, isang rectangle na 5, isang rectangle na 10, what we'd have to do is itatrack din natin kung gaano yung kalaki yung distance ito, no, which is 4.5, di ba? Kasi kung 70 to, 79 tong buong to, from 79 yung buo from the edge of the circle to the other edge. Sorry, hindi nyo nakikita kasi white din yung cursor eh. Then yung remaining is 9 na lang, no? Split into 2. So that's 9 divided by 2, 4.5. So hanapin nyo po na yung 4.5. Then you move the rectangle, no? So that will be parang mas mabagal siya, no? Kumpara sa create ka na lang ng 70 by 90, then move it by its center papunta sa midpoint. Okay? So at this point, hindi na necessary itong line, no? We can now just delete it. So we can press delete or pwedeng erase tool, no? We can do erase tool, then select the object. Then to finalize the erasure, you press enter. And bakit hindi siya nag-erase? Yan. Then you can erase it that way. Pero ako, I think it's faster to just select the object then press delete, no? It's a faster way of erasing. If you're doing single objects lang ina-erase mo. Pero kung multiple objects yung ina-erase nyo, it might be faster to do E, then click the objects you want to erase. Parang ganyan. Then if you're happy with it, you press enter, i-delete na niya yung mga objects na to. Na yun. Okay? Control Z undoes the action, no? So, parang same lang naman sa sa common programs. Control Z is undo, Control Y is redo. At Control Y, tama. Control Y is redo. Control Z is undo. Okay? So, ito, I just want to delete this. So, I'll delete that. So, medyo patapos na tayo, no? It's almost complete. Ang problema lang is that siya, no? Hindi pa siya naka-fillet. So, we'll have to fillet this corners right here. Dito, walang binigay na walang binigay na dimensions. Kung usually kasi binibigay yung dimension nitong rounded portion na to. Pero in this particular case, we can assume na this fillet right here is the maximum fillet, no? Such that maximum roundness na kaya niyang ma-achieve if it is starting from this point sa center mismo ng sa center ng rectangle natin. So the maximum radius na kaya niyang i-achieve dito would be 5. Tama? Kasi the overall height of the object is 10. So the maximum will be yung half niya. Tama? So 10 over 2. So half of that would be the maximum radius. So let's assume na maximum yung gusto niya dyan, no? So what we want to do is I want to access the fillet tool. The fillet tool is accessed through F. So fillet. Now before you select objects, kailangan muna natin mag-input ng radius. Okay? So to input a radius, we can go into the bottom and click the parang chips na to. So pwedeng click ko yung radius like so. Pwedeng left click siya. Pero for me, it's much easier to access it through the shortcut, no? And the shortcut is, again, kung sino yung naka capital letters dyan. So, ang naka-capital dito is si R. So, I press R, then enter. Then, I'm asked to input a radius. So, the radius we want to input is, again, we want to assume na maximum radius yung i-fillet natin. So, I'll type in 5. Tapos, magsa-select na ako ng object ko. So, the way it works is you select two objects, then between those two objects, gagawa siya ng fillet. So, that's usually how we do it, like so. Pero there is a faster way of doing this, no? If you actually select a closed loop, parang i-fillet niya yung lahat ng corners of that closed loop. And that will be faster, no? As opposed to multiple selection. Kasi pwede gawin natin is ganito, fillet. Tapos, yung radius natin, it's actually saved, no? Yung radius natin. Kasi if you press R, di pala nakasave kasi hindi natin finalize. So, enter tayo ng radius of 5. Pwede naman, ang gawin natin is click, then do it again. F ulit, click, then F. Click, then last F. Click, then click. Pwede naman, pero it's much slower, no? So, I'll teach you another technique. What we want to do is, let's select this entire thing right here. Tapos, ang gusto natin gawin is to press or to join them together, no? So, if you open the properties tool, so properties is accessed through control 1. If you look at this object right here, parang, ay, na-join ko na pala siya. Wait lang, i-undo ko lang muna yung join. Ay, sorry, naka-join na pala to kasi we created this through a rectangle, no? So this is actually, kaya pala nagulat ako, polyline na siya, no? So a polyline means that it is a single line that is, ano, no? Kumbaga, a single line that is joined yung mga corners nila. So as opposed to something like, kunwari, if I just use my line tool, and I'll just freehand this, no? Kunwari ganyan. So, if I try to select this, then look at my properties tab ulit, I'll notice na dito, nakasulat sa line siya. So, it's line and my parenthesis 4, it means na meron tayong 4 na individual lines. So, dahil may 4 na individual lines dyan, mayayari is, independently, isa-select nyo tong mga lines na to. Okay, sometimes we want to combine them, no? Kailangan naka-polyline siya. So, ang two options is, dapat, nung ginawa natin yung line, we should have used a polyline. And the polyline is accessed through PL. That's your polyline. Itong P line na to, polyline. So, if I created the same object, kunwari yan. If I select this polyline right here and look at the properties, makikita nyo na one polyline na yung nakalabas. Okay? And dito naka-close no siya. So, ibig sabihin open polyline actually siya, no? To close the polyline, kailangan natin i-join to. Pero mamaya natin i-figure out yun. Pero ito, pwede natin siyang i-gawing polyline, no? From a open multiple lines, pwede natin siya i-combine through the join command. So, pag ginoin natin siya, and let's select it again, testing natin yung properties. Notice how naging polyline na siya and naging closed loop na rin siya. Tama? So, ito, i-correct natin. Gusto natin i-join siya, no? So, we press in join. Select object to join. Ay, wait lang. Hindi pala pwede. Ay, na-join na pala. Hindi. Properties. Naka-no kasi. Kasi ang mali ko doon, hindi ko kasi kinlow siya, no? So, what I should have done is yung polyline, if I wanted to create that and naka-close siya, dapat ang ginawa ko, instead of clicking it here, dapat ang ginawa ko is kinlose ko yung loop. So, the close command or option is accessed through this one or C. So, if I press C, then enter, then i-close niya. Ipa-find niya yung first point niya and they will close it. So, pag click ko to, properties, close na dapat siya. Okay? And this will be important, no? Kasi, why I'm emphasizing this class, no? Kasi, for now, parang they look the same, no? Whether it's closed or not closed, parang the same lang naman dapat siya. Pero, when you go into 3D kasi, nag-iiba yung behavior ng isang closed loop versus an unclosed loop. And there are cases wherein we want to close the loop para makuha natin yung gusto nating image. Like, for example, there are cases wherein kung unclosed yung loop, hindi mo ma-press pull. Or unclosed yung loop, bawal siya i-extrude. Or kung closed yung loop, pwede na siyang i-extrude. Kung unclosed siya, ang mangyayari is surface yung nakikreate nyo instead of a whole solid. Mga ganun, no? May mga ganung interactions. So, that's why it's important na alam natin when an object is closed, when an object is open. No? Again, you can access the properties tab. Control 1 yung properties. I have it set up na naka-auto hide siya, no? Tapos nandito lang siya to the side. Usually, ang ginagawa ko is siya, no? Side by side with the layers, no? Para ganyan. Naka-access sila through the side. So, parang i-hover over ko lang. Tapos, yung properties nandito din. Parang ganyan. Tapos, naka-auto hide siya. Pero, if you find it distracting, pwede naman i-close nyo lang, no? So, kumbaga, kunwari, ayaw nyo na may layers. Close nyo lang to. Tapos, close din yung properties. And, nakalimutan ko yung command ng layers. Layers is control. Ano nga yung layers? Alam ko may shortcut din to eh. Yung properties lang yung medyo familiar ako, control 1 kasi madalas kong ginagamit to, no. If you want it to be a parang pwede naman ang gawin nyo is nakaganyan siya. Na floating lang siya, no. So whenever you need it, access it through control 1. So control 1, lalabas siya. Pwede naman ganyan yung gawin nyo, no. If you want it to be like that. Okay? So, let's delete it again. So, ang gusto natin mangyari is i-fillet natin to. Um, since naka-join na tong object na to, pwede actually what we want is fillet. Then, before we press anything, click natin tong radius. So, R. Tapos 5. Now, what we want to do is, before we click the first object and second object, pwede natin i-click tong polyline, no? So, pwede i-click nyo or type in P. So, I'll just type in P, enter. Now, if I select this object, automatic, i-fillet na niya lahat ng corners of that polyline. So that's why polylines also are ano no faster to work with kasi kumbaga it can automate things like this, no. So we can select that and we have made the fillet na radius dito sa ano na to. Now this one, eto i-fillet din natin to, no, pero wala talagang binigay. Hindi rin natin alam kung anong radius na to, no. So we'll have to estimate. Ano sa tingin nyo? Hindi siya 5. Kasi if you look at the 5, yung radius niya, it's much larger than 5, no? I'm estimating baka mga 10. So, for this exercise kasi hindi binigay, let's just estimate na 10 siya, no? Or 7. Let's do 7. So, ang gagawin natin is, again, fillet tayo. Then, press R for radius. Tapos, masasave actually yung last na fillet na ginawa nyo, no? Na fillet radius. So, let's type in 7. Tapos, isa-isahin natin to. So, this one, this object, and this, cannot, bakit? So, I think, wait lang 7. Ba't ayaw niya ma-fillet? Let me do that again. Something is preventing it from, I don't know. Dapat pwede. I'll do R7. Dahil ba maliit ang let me do a larger radius now kung if that's what's preventing it. Ay, okay. Parang alam ko na yata. So, hindi niya na-fillet kasi it's okay. Hindi niya na-fillet kasi ito separate object kasi ito eh. The way it works is dapat kasi naka-trim to, no? Pag ganito, I think kaya na niya na ma-fillet. Hindi, ayaw pa rin eh. What is this? Naka-connect naman siya. Gawa lang tayo ng 2 lines dito, no? Let's create 2 lines. And let's try to... Ito, na-fillet naman. So, it should be possible, no? So, this is the same thing. Fillet natin. So, it should be possible. For some reason, ayaw niya. Try nga natin i-extend muna to. So, let's extend this vertex. Would that solve it? Sige. Parang ayaw niya, no? Let's redraw. Baka... What is preventing it? Kasi if we just draw a random circle here and a random line, this is possible, no? Not a valid radius. So, let's do 3 siguro. Kaya naman. So it is possible to fill it when you have two lines, no? So let's check the properties. I-investigate natin. Ito naman circle lang siya. This one is just a line, I think. This is a line, no? This is a line. Ito naman, it's a polyline. Posible kaya dahil polyline siya. It might be because it's a polyline, no? So, try natin ulit yun. Radius of 10 or 7 yung sabi natin, no? Tapos, try natin naka-polyline siya. So, I'll select a polyline. Kaso dito, ano kasi. So, it's probably because of this class, no? Kasi if you look at this, naka-polyline siya. So, kailangan natin i-change sa into a line, no? Hindi ko alam kung may tool ba to change this to a line. Pero, hindi ko masyadong alam pa kung paano siya i-change into a line, no? From a polyline to a line. But I'll just lalagay na lang ako ng isang line over it. Tapos, i-delete ko na lang yung other line, no? So, if you hover over this, parang hindi mo kasi alam kung ano yung na-select mo, no? So, what you can do is enable natin yung multi-selection tool, no? So, I forgot what the tool is named, no? I think we can access it here. Hanapin ko lang, Not this, that's object snapping. Saan nga ba yun? Eto. Filters object selection tool. So, if I click it here, hindi, this is not it. Ito nga ba yun? Ito, selection cycling. I think this is the one. Ayan. Ito, enable nyo lang tong selection cycling, no? It's, nandito siya. So, if naka-unhighlight siya, ibig sabihin naka-off yung highlight. Or naka-off yung selection cycling. If naka-highlight siya, is naka-on siya. So, the way selection cycling works is, kung may two objects that are coinciding or very near to each other, pagka sinelect nyo yung object na yun, may lalabas na two tools dito, no? Or may lalabas na dalawang option. So, what I want to do is select the polyline kasi yun yung gusto kong i-delete. Select the polyline, then delete it. Tapos, I'll do another line here and create it there. Then select the polyline again. Yun yung i-delete natin. And hopefully, this should now work, no? Kasi naka-line na siya. So, let's do fillet again. Radius of 7. And if I select this object and this object na naka-fillet siya. So, it's exactly because it's a polyline, no? So, hindi ko masyadong sure kung bakit siya ganon. It's a polyline because, di ba nung kinrate natin siya, rectangles kasi ginamit natin. So, nung rectangles yung ginamit natin is, siya. Meron palang isang faster way. Kasi, wait lang let me just do an experiment. We could have used explode pala. So, let's just trim this. Kunwari, ganito kasi yung ginawa natin. So, this one, if you look at the properties, polyline siya. And this one, naka-polyline din. Pero, I think what we could have done is, instead of creating the two lines, no? Pwedeng ang ginawa natin is, I think if I select this both and I press explode. So, explode is like, if you have a rectangle, kunwari, or any polyline, pag in-explode nyo, it will separate it into different na sections or individual lines. So, if we press explode, dapat, yan, naging line na siya. So, pwede palang explode lang yung ginamit natin instead of creating the two lines. So, if we want, kung gusto natin ibalik yun, no? So, sorry. Undo lang natin ulit lahat. Ayan. Ito, this is a polyline. This is also a, undo pala natin. Ano ba yung last natin na Ito ay polyline. Okay? So, pwede ang ginawa natin is, click natin yung two lines na to, then we could have done explode. So, magiging line na to, Control 1, it's a line, and this one is a line. So, we could have do fillet. So, fillet natin. Let's do radius of 7, then this one and this one. And let's look at the reference object. Parang hindi sa 7, no? It's more than 7. Ito masyado maliit yung 7 na radius. Probably 10 nga ata to. So let's undo that. Let's do radius of 10. And I think that looks closer to this one. Or naging OA ba siya? Sige. Pwede sigurong i-ano na natin yan. No? Let's just assume na 10 na siya. Okay, so let's do it throughout the entire thing. So, once you do the fillet command, again, nasa-save yung radius, no? So, no need to input the radius every time. It saves the last radius na ginawa nyo. So, pwedeng sa next 3 corners na to, gawin ko is press F, then first object, second object, then F again, first object, second object. And in fact, pwede nga hindi ko pindutin ng F ulit, no? Pwede nga gawin ko is just press the space command again. So what the space command does is, it retrieves the last tool na ginamit nyo. So last tool na ginamit ko was fillet. So pwedeng space lang, then click, click, then space again, click, click. So that will become faster, no? So especially if you want to do repetitive tasks na paulit-ulit using the same tool, you can do space, no? Space will retrieve kung ano yung last command na ginamit nyo. Okay, so this is okay na. Na-meet na natin yung requirements natin. So this is now the 2D space. Now, this is still 2D, no? Now, the reason why I wanted to start with 2D is because from 2D, pwede actually tayong mag-proceed to 3D agad-agad. Okay, so I'll teach you how to do that. And in fact, it's also parang good practice, no, na when you are creating any 3D model, mas maganda na parang 2D kayo nagsa-start, then just parang use press pull or use extrude and different commands to build the 3D object. Okay, there is also another way, yung parang meshing, no, yung tawag nila doon. You create a mesh, then from the mesh, gagawa kayo ng surface to cover up the mesh, then from that bunch of surfaces, i-convert nyo siya into a solid, no? Pero that is harder to do. Okay siya gawin kapag yung object nyo is parang medyo, how you say, organic siya, na parang hindi masyadong orthogonal yung mga shapes nila, or hindi siya regular shapes, no? Yung mga ganon, usually mini-mesh siya, no? You do a wireframe mesh, then create a surface, then convert it into a volume, no? Pwede ko naman turuan kayo if we still have time to do that. Pero the way we usually do it is we start 2D, then build it up into a 3D shape afterwards. Okay? So, let's take a break. 9:54 na sa clock ko. Let's come back 10 a.m. Tapos, continue natin yung 3D portion ng lecture na to. Okay? Okay, it's 10 a.m. Pwede tayo magsimula ulit, no? Okay, so I've shown you a few 2D tools. But now, since ang goal naman natin bakit tayo nag-AutoCAD dito is because we want to create a 3D object para pwedeng yung 3D object na yun yung i-feed natin doon sa 3D printers, no? So, mas importante sa atin ngayon na matutunan kung paano mag-create ng 3D models from this 2D image. So, kunwari, ito, may 2D image na tayo. And although hindi given yung mga dimensions dito, no, we can just assume some of the dimensions. Pero essentially, this is just a wrench, no? And this should have a 3D, parang, kumbaga may 3D element siya. So, we can add volume. There is a volume to this one, no? Ang gagawin natin is, let's just assume some of the dimensions. So essentially, ito pwedeng gawin natin is butas to. This one and this one. Ito sa polygons. Butas siya. Tapos ito, parang itong nasa loob na to is just a sort of indentation, no? So, we can figure that out as well. Okay? So, gawin natin is let's move into the 3D space. So to move into the 3D working space, ang gagawin natin is we select this one. Again, yung parang cog icon or gear icon. Tapos, ang current workspace natin is naka 3D, naka drafting and annotation natin to. So, that is essentially yung 2D. Ang gagawin natin is move tayo into 3D modeling. So, you can do 3D basics. Ito, stripped down version of 3D. Pero, I like to do 3D modeling na diretso. Ganyan. Kasi halos same lang naman yung top ribbon. Parang meron lang mga certain tools na hindi na-access dun sa 3D basics dito, no? And since mostly gagamit naman tayo ng um, ano tawag dito? Shortcuts, parang better na naka 3D model na tayo dito kasi we want itong mga visualize na to magiging importante sa atin to um, later on. Okay? So, we have this object. Pwede siguro i-delete na natin to, no? We can just delete this. Parang ganyan. Tapos, let's talk about 3D navigation, no? So, in 3D, meron tayong box dito. So, this is the box, the navigation box. Then the navigation box, by default, naka-top view lang tayo. Kasi kung naka 2D ka, you are always working on the XY plane, no? And the XY plane is the plane that will show you the top view. Parang ganyan. Pero we can now move this plane right there. So, pwedeng i-change natin yung box natin na to, no? So, for example, if I click one of the corners, this is now a northeast na orientation. And there are other orientations. In AutoCAD, if you press the home icon, it will default to the northeast na orientation, no? So, ito siya. So, it shows you the front, left, and the top view. Pero, in our case, di ba sa ES1, usually we want to show the front, right, and top view. So, dito actually yung default natin, no? Okay? Tapos, right now, naka-perspective mode kasi ito, no? So, we want to change that kasi the perspective mode is, I think naka-perspective mode to. Hindi, naka-parallel na pala. Okay na pala to. Pero, in case na hindi kayo naka-perspective mode, in case naka-perspective mode kayo, pwede nyo ibaguhin siya through this command. So, for example, if you do this drop-down menu, this drop-down menu, if you click it, lalabas itong parallel perspective with ortho faces. So, what we want is parallel kasi yun yung parang isometric view, kumbaga. If you do perspective, parang nagbabago kasi yung, let me just show you, no? Sa perspective, makikita nyo na yung mga parallel lines natin, hindi actually siya nagmi-meet, no? Parang ganyan. And later on, and if we just zoom here, makikita nyo pag sa perspective, meron tayong horizon line, no? Ito yung horizon line natin. So, you know that it's in perspective mode pag nakikita nyo itong horizon line. So, ayaw natin nun. Gusto natin parallel tayo. So, if you look at parallel, wala talagang horizon line, no? Parang ganyan. So, when you're working, usually is naka-perspective mode tayo. Pero if you want to show off your object, pwede naman naka-perspective mode kasi that will give you a more real-world representation, no? Okay? So, I've given you yung yung option to snap in. So, kunwari, if I want to show the northeast isometric view, pwede din ganyan. Top and front lang ipapakita ko. Pwede din i-rotate, etc., etc. Pwede ganun, no? Pero, in most cases, what we want is, instead of doing it this way, no? Gusto natin na freely natin siyang i-move. So, you want it to freely move kasi or freely orbit around the 3D space kasi there are cases wherein dynamic na gusto natin tingnan yung bottom, gusto natin tingnan yung right side kasi may certain commands that works better on that particular view, no? So, to do that, you actually just have to, di ba, pag sa normal 2D, it's pressing the third mouse button and it will access the pan tool. So, now, ang gagawin natin is if we hold the shift button and now hold the third mouse button or the mouse wheel button, ang mangyayari is it changes from a hand tool na ganyan, mag-change siya into an orbit tool. And in an orbit tool, pwede ka nang mag-freely orbit around the object. So, look at the etong navigation box natin. It also changes. Alam mo kung saan yung orientation siya nakatingin, no? So, it's top, front, right, etc., etc. Parang ganyan. Okay? So, this is a good tool para maano siya, no? Now, right now, wala pa naman tayong objects na ginagawa. Pero as early as now, tuturo ko na sa inyo yung mga visualization or rendering na styles dito, no? So, right now, by default, it's wireframe. Wireframe is good, no? Kasi makikita nyo yung makikita nyo yung all the lines available to you And it makes it easier to access lines that are otherwise covered by different faces. Pero sometimes, mahirap kasi imagine yung nagawa yung object pagka naka-wireframe kayo. Usually, we want shades of gray. Yung shades of gray kasi is para makita nyo yung parang depth ng object. No? Kasi it's shaded. Medyo may na-imagine nyo siya yung object. No? So let me just draw a box here. No? Para lang mas ma-imagine nyo. I'll just draw a random box. So, shades of gray is good, no? Kasi ma-imagine nyo talaga kung ano yung, if you look at the object, parang kitang-kita nyo yung orientation niya around in space. Shades of gray. You can also do, kasi if it's wireframe, like the default, parang ang hirap ma-imagine. Especially if it's a complicated object, mahirap ma-imagine no, kung nasaan yung mga certain portion na to. But again, there are use cases for this kasi wari gusto mo makuha yung bottom corner na to, it would be covered by some of the faces and baka mas mahirap siyang i-access. No? Some students actually prefer the wireframe. No? Some of my students dito, naalala ko sino ba yun? I think si Alex ata. Parang parating wireframe si Alex eh. So, tama ba alala ko? Estudyante kita Alex dati, di ba? Hindi ko na maalala. Anyway, some students...
Yes, sir. Yes, man.
Yeah. So, yun. Some students like X-ray. Sorry, some students like the wireframe. Ako, hindi ko gusto siya all the time. A good mix between yung shaded and yung may wireframe pa rin is X-ray, no? Kasi if you look at X-ray, parang may elements pa rin of shading. Pero kita mo pa yung mga different na lines in behind, no? So, this is a good parang siguro compromise. You can do X-ray. Pero recently, gusto ko na tong shaded with edges, no? I like it because, bakit ko nga ba gusto nito? Kasi it's, parang, mas na-imagine ko yung object ko, especially kasi ito yung mas comparable siya doon sa pagka inano na natin, present na natin siya in kunwari nag-create tayo ng technical drawing for our object. Etong shaded with edges, hidden pala, hidden. If I do hidden, ito actually yung parang nakikita natin doon sa pagka pinroject na natin siya into a 2D technical drawing, no? Parang ito yung real world. So, recently ko lang nalaman to. Parang I like to do the hidden. Pero, in most cases, parang it's either shades of gray or X-ray yung ginagamit ko. Okay? So, it's up to you kung ano yung mas comfortable kayo. Ano pa ba yung iba? Some students also, for some reason, they like this one, no? Itong conceptual. Parang, I think, sino pa ba yung naging estudyante ko? If naalala ko parang si Jem ata eh. Naging estudyante ba kita Jem? Parang si Jem, gusto ata niya tong yung conceptual. Hindi ko na maalala yung exact na no. Or si Nini ba yun?
Tama, sir.
Yun. Basta usually, basta may mga students na gusto tong conceptual for some reason. Kaya ako, ito yung pinaka hindi ko gusto sa lahat, no. Tapos, so, for now, start tayo with shades of gray lang muna. Kasi it's a good starting point, no? Yung shades of gray. Tapos later on, pwede tayo mag-shift between the different types of rendering styles. Okay? So, delete lang muna natin to. So, what we want to do is, gusto natin na ibigyan ng volume itong object na to. So, since this is a symmetric na object, pwede naman na gawin natin is, we do one half of it, tapos i-duplicate na lang natin yung other half doon sa bottom part, then union natin siya para maging one object siya. Then we can create the object itself, no? Pero, good approach ba yun? Or better approach na isa-isahin na lang natin? Kasi magiging different depths kasi, no? Or different na, kumbaga, volumes ito, this one, and this one, as well as itong nasa loob, no? Okay? So, sige, let's just figure it out as we go along the way, no? So, let's start with this one. Gusto ko bigyan ng volume itong portion na to. Gusto natin na hold ito, tapos ito naman is hold in ito. Right? So, what we want to do is, let's press pull this one. So, press pull is There are many tools to use no in AutoCAD, pero perhaps the number one tool na gagamitin natin is the press pull tool. So press pull tool is exactly how it sounds like. No, you are pressing certain features of your object uh, onto the object, or you are pulling those features away from the object. So to illustrate, let me draw a box first. No, what a box. Thus, let's just say, for example, along this box, and let's do dynamic input. Along this box, may circle ka. Tapos gusto mo na, kunwari, let's just say, we have a circle there. Tapos meron tayong triangle. Let's do a triangle. Kunwari lang may triangle din tayo dyan. Okay. So let's say, for example, itong circle na to, gusto natin na magkaroon siya ng butas dyan of a certain depth. And i-estimate lang natin yung depth na yun. Tapos, using this circle. So, gagawin natin is we press pull. We do press pull. Hover over the area of the circle. Then, we press it downwards. Okay? If we press it downwards like so, makikita natin na nagkaroon ng parang cavity dito sa loob, no? Okay? Then, we can also press it pataas. So, kunwari, hindi kayo happy pa rin, may press natin siya pataas. Like so. Oops. Pwede natin siya i-press pataas. Like, for example, gusto natin baguhin somewhere dyan siguro. Ganyan lang. Pwede naman ganun, no? Tapos, kung gusto nyo gawin siyang full butas, we can press it dire-diretso pababa. Like so. It seems as if para siyang nagkaroon ng extension, pero ang mangyayari dito is parang since we are pressing it downwards dire-diretso, mangyayari is magiging full butas siya. So for example, if you look at it from the top view, butas na talaga siya. Look at from the bottom, butas siya, parang ganyan. So that's press pull, no? Pwede mo i-press down siya, pero pwede mo ding i-pull up. Like for example, if I do press pull, tapos gusto kong i-pull to such that magkakaroon ng protrusion itong triangular na prism na protrusion itong box na to, I can pull it upwards like so. And I'll have something that looks like this. So that's why it's called press pull, no? Kasi you can either press it downwards or pull it upwards towards a particular na parang shape, no? Okay? At this point, kailangan ko ituro sa inyo na most tools in AutoCAD rely on the XY plane, no? So, parang if there's most 3D tools, they always want, you are always working on the XY tool, then pulling it or manipulating it along the Z direction. So, it's very important na alam nyo kung ano yung orientation ng XY plane natin. So, right now, hindi masyadong importante siya kasi yung object naman natin, nakadrawing siya sa XY plane. So, if you look at the top view, ito naman yung XY plane natin, no? So, nakikita din naman dito sa bottom left, itong origin natin. Makikita nyo na meron tayong XY plane dito. So, most of the tools will work without even changing the visual, the 3D axis natin. So, this is called the world coordinate system, no? So, world coordinate system is where yung ground natin is the XY. Tapos, you are moving from the ground, yung perpendicular to the ground is the Z-axis. Okay? So, yun yung default natin. So, WCS. Pero, there are cases wherein we want what we call as a UCS, no? Or user coordinate system, wherein kailangan natin baguhin yung XY plane natin para makapag-manipulate tayo ng objects the way we want to manipulate them, no? For now, world coordinate system will be enough for this particular exercise. Okay? So, let's say, for example, ito, ipupull natin kasi this is a wrench, no? Gusto natin siyang i-pull pataas itong portion na to. So, again, hindi natin gagalawin yung sa gitna kasi ito, since it's a wrench, dapat butas lang to lahat, no? Ito and ito. Okay? So, let's do press pull. Tapos, hover over natin siya dito. Ito sa area na to. So, if you hover over this one, ang mangyayari dyan is it will press pull yung entire object, no? So, for example, ganyan, entire circle yung mapapress pull nyo. And we don't want that, no? Ang gusto kasi natin is, gusto natin i-press pull itong area lang na to, excluding the circular na nasa gitna. So, if I hover over this, notice how nare-retain yung butas. Okay? Now, obviously, if I did press pull dito sa loob, ang mangyayari is yung magkakaroon ng volume yung hexagon natin or yung butas natin. Okay? So, again, press pull tayo. hover over tayo sa area na to. Then, let's give it a volume. Let's estimate lang now, no? I think I want to give it 30 yung overall. So, maybe 15 lang muna ngayon. So, I'll do 15. Parang ganyan. Now, I want to press pull this area right here. And, usually, di ba, pag wrench, mas makapal yung ano, yung dito na part. So, I'll do, kung 15 yung ginawa natin, let's do 10 siguro. 10. Tapos, etong part na to, usually, hindi to butas, no? Parang ano lang siya, indented portion. So, pwede natin i-press pull din to. Let's do, kung 10 yon, tapos indented natin siya by 5. Let's do 5 siguro. Ano, parang masyadong OA yon. Baka 7, para 3 millimeters lang yung indentation. Parang ganyan. So, we can do something like that. It's starting to look like a wrench, no? Tama? Tapos, ito, let's do the same same height dito sa taas. Ginawa natin nun is, ano ba ginawa natin? 15, no? 15, tama? So, that's our wrench. Now, if you look at this, parang hindi pa siya exactly the way we want it, no? Kasi, kumbaga dito sa bottom portion, wala yung, ano, yung parang excess dito. Tama? I think I'm happy with the overall length dito, no? So, gusto natin na i-extend na lang tong part na to by the same amount dito. Okay? So, if we measure this distance, we can do measure geom, a distance from this point to this point. We see na it has a distance of 5, no? So, which is correct, no? Kasi ang ginawa natin 15 kasi to, tapos ito 10. So, that is a distance of 5. So, the way, again, yung ginawa ko lang noon is measure geom, no? So, that's MEA, measure. Then, I wanted distance. I selected this point and it's smart enough to know na parang kaya niyang i-measure itong perpendicular distance na to, no? Perpendicular to the, kumbaga, circular na circumference na yun. Okay? Tapos, pag kinlik mo siya, it will give you a distance equals 5. Okay? So, a measure geom will be very important sa inyo, no? So, gawin natin is, let's indent it by 5 din, or kumbaga, extrude din natin to by 5. So, let's do press pull. Press tayo by another 5. We can actually enter a particular distance also. That's 5. Tapos, wag nyo lang pansinin itong mga lines na to, no? Kasi those lines, kasi one solid object lang naman to. This line is, kumbaga, this is just yung tinrace natin, no? Later on, pwede naman natin siyang i-delete afterwards, no? Kung okay na tayo. So, kumbaga guidelines lang ito. Okay, so that's looking correct na yung other half. Dito, let's press pull it again. Dito sa baba. So I like to do it this way, no, na parang naka 3D orientation siya kasi kapag fully flat siya, kunwari naka bottom siya, parang mahirap malaman kung gaano kalaki yung or on what direction ako nagpe-press pull. Tama? Kung magpe-press pull ako diyan, hindi ko kita. So usually gusto ko na naka at least ganyan man lang para pag nag-press pull ako ngayon, kita ko kung saan direction talaga siya pumupunta. Okay, so again, press pull din natin to by 5. Like so. So, okay na tayo dito, no? And now, ang kulang na lang natin is this distance right here, no? So, this should be 3, no? Kasi ginawa natin 7 to, ginawa natin 10 to. So, dapat 3, no? Pero just to be sure, let's measure it. Let's measure the distance. Probably this point up to this point. And lumabas 3 nga siya. Okay? So, we need to press this one 3 paloob, no? Okay? So, 3 millimeters paloob. So, press pull again. Ito, then we push it inside by 3. Okay? So, that's now our object. So, very quick, no? From the 2D na wrench na ginawa natin, nagawa na natin siyang 3D. Let's look at it from the isometric view. It looks 3D. Tama? Ito siya. So, hindi pa siya ready, no? Kasi if you look at it, it's 4 individual parts siya. And in fact, itong sa baba, hindi siya, ano, no? Bakit kaya hiwalay ito? Nagkamali ba ako dito? Pero okay lang, hindi na natin i-correct, no? Pero parang ang dating nung pinrest pull ko siya, it pulled it as a separate na object, no? So, it's probably because parang dinetect niya yung area ng yung guidelines natin. So, when you nung na-detect yung area ng guidelines, nung pinrest pull ko siya, then it makes sense na separate object siya. kasi hindi niya na-detect yung object mismo. Sa object ako nagpe-press pull, no? Pero okay lang, hindi naman siya masyadong nagmamatter, no? Kasi pwede naman nating i-combine itong mga shapes na to. So dito, if I just select everything and press Control 1, you'll see na it's 16 different objects. And of those 16 different objects, may line tayo na 2, solid na yun na 5, circle 2, arc na 4, tapos polyline na 3. And eto mga arc, circle, solids, ito yung guidelines natin, no? Pero ang importante sa atin is the solids. So we have 5 different solids, no? And ayaw natin yung 5 different solids. Gusto kasi natin na one object lang to, kasi when we are 3D printing this and we're converting this into an usually sa 3D printing, STL yung ano nila, no? Tinatanggap na file type. So, in an STL file, dapat kasi one single object lang to. Okay? So, what we want to do is combine this using the union command. So, what we do is we type in union. Tapos, we select the objects that we want to sort of unionize. So, ito, select everything and we press enter. Now, if I try to select one object, ang mangyayari dyan is magiging single object na sila, no? Okay? So, if I do control 1 ulit for properties, you can see na one solid object na lang siya, one 3D solid. Right? So, just to clean it up, gusto kong i-remove tong guidelines, no? So, pwede kong for the meantime, isolate ko muna to. So, I do click the object, right-click, isolate, then hide the objects for the meantime, no? So, I do hide objects, and I'm left with the guidelines. Select ko yung mga guidelines ko, then just delete it para lang mas malinis. I right-click again, isolate, then end object isolation. And now I should have this object right here, no? Itong wrench na to. Now you can try to do kunwari hidden. Ito yung makikita natin kapag pinroject na natin siya dun sa 2D workspace, no? Kunwari gusto natin siyang i-print, no, for yung technical diagram na niya. Okay? So, let's do. You can also place it in the layout space, no? So, pwede tayong, kunwari, i-delete ko to. This is called the, ang tawag dito. Layout is essentially yung parang how it looks like in the paper space, yung tawag ng AutoCAD dito. No? This is what we call as a paper space. So, how it looks like when it's printed on paper. Okay? Think of it as a print preview, no? So, kunwari, when you're working with Excel or Word, di ba pag nag-control P kayo, may lalabas na parang paper space doon, kung kumbaga page, tapos kung ano yung itsura niya on the page. Parang ganito din yung layout na portion, no? Yung layout tab dito is the paper space. Okay? So this is what we call as a view. View ba? Nakalimutan ko yung exact term. I think it's view. What's this? Select natin. Control 1. This is a viewport pala. Sorry. That's the correct word. So, viewport. This is a viewport. Tapos, etong viewport na to, sometimes it's useful, no? Parang kung gusto nyo lang ipakita yung, especially for 2D, parang magiging useful to when you're trying to show a certain, parang, kunwari, usually kasi pag, kunwari, especially sa mga architects, no? Usually, lahat ng plans nila in a single model space lang. Then, when they do the layouting, parang certain portions lang yung ipapakita na. So, viewport will be useful for that. No? Pero for our case, hindi importante itong viewport. Ang gusto natin actually gawin is we want to create a 3D na parang 2D representation of our 3D workspace. No? So, parang mag-isometric view tayo in ES1 terms. Isometric view, pati multi-view projection. So, the first time you're doing this, ipoprompt kayo ng installation. Pero if na-install na yung inventor plugin yung tawag, no? If na-install na yung inventor plugin, then you can easily do this, no? So, what we want to do is we create a base. Then, select natin itong from model space. Okay? So, kukunin niya yung, and it will take a few seconds to load, no? So, it's loading. Kukunin niya yung model space. Now, what I want to do is, gusto kong is ipapaselect kasi kayo ng parent na view, no? So, the parent view is sort of like kung saan yung other views will come from. So, I wanted to create the front view first, then create the top view and the right side view later. So, gusto ko na parent ko is the front view. So, front view yung pipiliin ko. So, that's the front. Select it. Then, press enter. Now, I can if I pull it to the top, that will give me the top view. If I pull it to the right, that will give me the right side view. Okay? Tapos if I pull it here, that should give me the isometric view. Pero for now, parang iba yung itsura nyo kasi sa ES1 dapat yung northeast view yung pinapakita natin. And it's because iba yung standard na ginagamit ni AutoCAD no, naka first angle projection siya. So we need to change it to third angle kasi third angle yung ginagamit sa ES1. So you just go into these styles and standards. Tapos, from first angle projection, change natin siya into third angle projection. Okay, so yun lang. By default, it's first angle. Change lang natin into third angle projection. So again, let's do it again from model space. Tapos, ang pinili natin front view. Press enter. Then, move to the top. Move to the right. And move towards the parang upper right corner. And now, if I press enter, I should be shown, parang naka-automatic na din yung mga hidden lines na, no? Tapos, so kita na ito na yung multi-view and isometric natin of our object. And nakakita din dito yung, yung size niya. Look, so if we double-click, if we just double-click details, click lang natin to, and let's do edit view. Makikita natin kung ano yung ginamit yung scale, no? It's 1:2 yung ginamit. We can actually change this, no? So now if we do 1:1, kaso masyadong malaki, no? Hindi kasya sa paper. So 1:2, probably 1:1.5 kakasya. 1:1.5 will also work, no? Okay? Now one thing wrong with this view is that siya, no? May hidden lines sa isometric mo, and usually kasi walang hidden lines dapat yung isometric. So what we can do is we can edit the view, no? So we do double click, tapos select natin tong hidden lines. Tapos gusto natin na visible lines only tong si isometric view. So you should be shown something that looks like this. Okay? So that's how you do isometric and multi-view for if you have a 3D object. Tapos ito, pwede sigurong i-ano nyo to, no? Format nyo na lang. Lagay kayo ng kunwari mga boxes nyo, kunwari ganyan. Tapos, ilagay kayo ng object name. Ito, yung title block natin. No? Object name, anong material, PLA, anong dimensions, etc. etc. So, kayo na bahala design ng nyo, title block lang. Okay? So, that is a simple case now wherein we have a 2D drawing. Tapos, from the 2D drawing, let's shift this to shades of gray. From the 2D drawing, nag-press pull lang tayo to give it volume, and we have found, or we have created our shape, no? Okay? Now, let me give you another example. Try natin gumawa ng isa pang 3D shape. Tapos, from that 3D shape na i-create natin, try din natin gumawa ng mga risers and gating systems for it, no? So, ipapakita ko sa inyo mamaya. Wait lang, 10:30, kaya pa ba? 30, kaya siguro 30 minutes for creation of the shape. I'll just choose a medyo hindi ganun kahirap. Tapos 30 minutes I'll give you an idea on how to create the risers and gating systems. Obviously you'll need to do calculations. Ang alam ko medyo dulo pa ituturo ni Sir Mark. Si Mark ba yung nyo? Teacher sa 177? Ano yung schedule nyo for yung riser and gating design? Sa dulo ba ng SEM or early ng SEM? Would you know? Sa syllabus, based on your syllabus? Sige. Pwede siguro kausapin na lang namin si Shay, si Mark, no? Baka pwedeng mag-request kami kung okay lang kay Mark na unahin yung casting portion para at least medyo ready na kayo. We'll have to shift the topics around, no? So, para pwedeng in sync yung natin, yung experiment on casting with the calculations part. Okay? So, essentially, you have to calculate kung ano yung risers na gagawin nyo and ano yung size ng gates, anong size ng runners, etc. Okay? So, let's delete this object first, no? Delete na natin to. Then let's start another object, and let me just choose a ano no. Hanap lang ako sa internet. You can find, if you want to practice, marami naman sa internet, no? Mga AutoCAD 3D practice. And let me choose an object na medyo madaling gawin. I think ito madali to. Let's choose this one. Okay. Again, ang gagawin ko dito, I'll go to the top view, no? Tapos, gawin natin is insert tayo ng image, attach ulit. And anong pangalan? 3D AutoCAD. Okay. And I'll just place this at 0, 0. Scale factor of 1, enter, and again, zoom tayo. Zoom extends kasi nawawala na ako sa image ko. Zoom extends, yan na siya. Okay? And I'll just, trial ko muna. I'll do, ano ba yung highest dimension dito? Let's do 65 kunwari. I'll do a circle of diameter 65. So, the circle. So, let's do 32.5. Parang ang laki, no? So, I'll have to rescale this. So, again, I'm doing this para yung actual object ko, and let's move the origin here. Yung actual object ko ngayon is the same size as the reference, no? So, I'm doing this para lang mas madali ko siyang mabalikan, no? So, probably I can do something like ganyan siguro. Para kita pa rin yung object. So, comparable size na sila, no? This is a radius of 32.5 para dito circle na to. I think okay na siguro yun. This is a good starting point. Yan. So, nandito yung object natin. Now, if we want to orbit, obviously, magiging ano siya, no? Magiging parang skewed yung object. So, we'll have, from time to time, babalik tayo dito. Tapos, balik tayo sa top view para lang makuha yung dimensions, no? If we were doing this side by side, kunwari, naka-ano tayo, this would be not much of a problem pag nandito lang siya to the side, no? And maybe we can do that, no? Sige, try natin tong ganitong option wherein nakabukas siya off to the side. Di pa ako naglilinis ng desktop ko, so medyo magulo yung files ko. So, let me just gawin natin is resize ko lang to. So, siguro, I'll place this off to the side. Maybe better to, no? Ganito yung gagawin natin. So, a portion of your screen is, or a portion of the screen will be dedicated to the image. Tapos, para hindi na tayo magta-top view once in a while. No? So, pwedeng delete ko na lang to. Pwedeng ganyan siya. So, medyo mas okay siguro itong ganito, no? Okay? Let's do it this way para mas mabilis siya. Now, again, ang goal natin is we want to create, usually, ang style is we create the profile first, yung 2D profile ng object, and give it volume afterwards. So, this is exactly what we want, no? Parang ang gusto natin is profile muna. Kunwari, itong tube na to, we can give it the profile first, 2 circles lang. Then after that, give it volume by pulling it. Okay? So, that's the easiest way to do mga objects in AutoCAD, no? Okay? So, let's do circle. I'm at the top view again. Pero again, I like to make I like to orbit it slightly na naka-orient siya. Kita yung Z direction, no, para mas madali kong siyang press pull later on. So, I'll do circle. Tapos, this is a circle of 65 daw yung diameter. Itong outer diameter niya is 65. So, this symbol right here means diameter. Tapos, pag R naman nakasulat, that's radius. No? So, it's 65. So, I do a circle. You can opt to just divide it. No? Kunwari, 65 divided by 2, that's 32.5. So, para kasi, di ba by default, yung circle tool natin, radius yung hinihingi. Pero, another option is, click this diameter option right here or press D para this time, ang ini-input muna is actually the diameter. So, if you don't want to do mental math, pwedeng ganun, no? So, kung diameter yung binigay, just shift the option to diameter instead of circle. Okay? So, that's my first circle. Tapos, next circle ko is 20. Tama? Diameter of 20. And this should be concentric. So, ang gagawin natin is hover over natin siya dito para lumabas yung center niya. And from the center, we draw another circle. Let's do the circle diameter ulit. Diameter of 20. Okay. So that's our first na tube. And now we can press pull this. Press pull. Bigyan natin siya ng volume. 48. Tama, no? It's 48 daw yung thickness niya. Or yung height niya. Okay. So this is right here. 48 daw. Okay. So that's our first object. Quite simple. Madali lang natin siyang nagawa, no? Okay. Now, what we want is create tayo ng sort of para mali pala yun, no? Mali na pinress pull natin siya agad. So, let me undo that. Kasi gusto ko i-create muna tong profile na to para mas madali, no? I want to create this profile right here. Ito. Para ito, I can press pull pataas, press pull pababa, then ito naman, press pull din pataas and press pull pababa by some amount, no? Para mas mabilis or mas madali gawin yon. Okay? So, what we want to do is, this is the right side view, no? So, we move it along the x direction dito. Ito yung right side natin. Sorry. Ito kasi yung magiging front view natin. This is front. Nandito, this is the right side view. So, in our case, this is the front view. Ito, yun nandyan. So, let me show the front. So, si right side view would be actually, if I show ganyan, right side view would be drawn off to this side right here. So, away from or along the y-axis. Okay? So, dapat dito ko siya i-drawing, no? So, let's draw this is, located tangent to the circumference of the tube or the circle. So, ibig sabihin, located siya at the quadrants, no? So, naka-on naman yung quadrants ko, so madali na lang to. So, pwedeng ang gawin ko, I'll use a polyline tool for this one. I can create it from the quadrant. Measure ako ng distance and I can hold shift para sure ako na it's 90 degrees. Pero pwede rin naman i-type in ko yung 90 degrees afterwards, no? So, ano ba yung distance nito? This distance is 50, no? Tama? If you look at the object here, it's 50 daw. 50 mula dito papunta dito. So, that's 50. So, I can measure 50 and again, type in 90, no? Para sure na 90 degrees siya. That's my first line. And then, I'll do another line. Punta dyan. Hindi explicitly sinabi ko ano yung distance na to, no? Pero, we know that it's just equal to the diameter, no? Kasi ito, if this is tangent here, dapat itong distance na to would be the same distance as the diameter, no? So, dapat ito should be 65. And the angle should be 180, no? Tama? 180. So, it's measured from, minimeasure kasi niya from here, no? So, if it's 65, then we should do 180 dito. And again, you can tab cycle, no? Para lang give you a preview kung tama yan. It's correct. So, enter. Then, the last point should be, if I just connect this here, that should give me the, correct na to. And you can also see from the preview, no, na 50 siya and 90 degrees. So, which is correct, no? So, parang ganyan. So, that's our, and just to be sure, let's look at the top view. Tama naman, no? So, that's the, how the image should look like. And this will now be easier to work with, no? Kasi pwede ang gawin natin is, press pull, pataas, half the distance also. If it's 48, let's press pull it by 24, tama? 24. Tapos dito naman, if it's 28 yung total niya, then we'll press pull it by 14. 14 patas. And we do the same for the bottom side, no? Press pull it. Pababa, that's 24. Let's press pull this again by another 14 ulit. Okay? And now, we have created the first shape, no? Ito. So, it's quite easy. Dali lang to. Now, we can create etong, naman, yung next part, yung nandito. Which is, etong L shape na to. Ito is created by, just, if we draw a rectangle dito sa baba, drawing tayo ng rectangle sa baba, then press pull it by the height. the entire height dito, and makukuha ba natin yung entire height? The entire height is, pwede tayong i-add, no? Kasi it's 32 daw siya. From here to here, it's 32. So, ibig sabihin, uh, what we can do is add that 32 with the 28. So, that's our entire parang height of this part of the L block, kumbaga. So, 28 plus 32, ano yun? 50 ba? Or 60? Tama, no? It's 60. So, 60 yung overall height niya. So, let's draw the rectangle first. To REC. And we start the rectangle here. And again, class, the 2D tools will always work on the XY plane. Okay? So, ngayon, ang XY natin is the ground. So, kaya if I draw a rectangle, always magano siya, no? It's drawn along the ground sa XY plane. Tapos, later on, baka kailangan natin mag-shift ng user coordinate system natin, no? Pero for now, I think okay pa naman tayo dito sa ground lang natin. Sa world coordinate system lang yung ginagamit natin, no? So, ang thickness niya is 18. So, we do 18 yung thickness. Tapos, yung length niya will be the same length as this one, which is 65. Okay? So, parang ganyan. Now, we can just press pull this. Ano sabi natin distance na ipa-press pull natin to? And for some reason, hindi siya nagbibigay ng space. So, we can probably select this one. Tapos, ano sabi natin? 60, no? Kasi it's 32 plus 28, so 60. So, that's the L block portion. Parang ganyan. Mamaya natin i-delete yung mga guidelines, no? Kasi baka later on kakailanganin pa natin yon. Or baka hindi na kailangan pa ba? Hindi na siguro. Hindi, okay lang. Kahit mamaya natin i-delete siya, no? Now, let's draw this sort of parang spine niya, no? Itong spine dito. So, to draw that spine, it's a rectangle na we can either draw it sa baba dito pa ganyan, tapos i-pull up natin siya in the Z direction, or we treat it the same way na ginawa natin dito, no? Set the profile of this one, ito parang block na to, and the profile of the circle as well, para ang gagawin natin is press pull na lang tayo to the right and to the left. That would be easier, no? And for that, kailangan din i-change yung coordinate system natin. Kasi gusto natin na yung XY natin ngayon would not be from the ground, but actually the XY would be from the right side view. Tama? Itong face na to. So there are many ways to do UCS, no? Pwede namang set tayo ng UCS by manually setting it. Like for example, UCS command. Tapos select tayo ng origin natin. We want it to be at the center dito, no? Para mas madali. Tapos yung X direction natin would be moving towards this direction here. So I'm holding shift para orthogonal siya, no? Tapos yung Y natin would be this one. So parang ganyan. Sorry, mali. The Y should be along the Sorry. Let's do that again. So we can do UCS. Move it at the center, which is the midway point. So lumabas yung parang 3D midpoint na to. Then the X would be here. Pero yung Y ko should be dito, no? Parang ganyan. Para yung Z ko ngayon. And notice how the the grids are now vertical, no? Kasi nagbago na yung XYZ ko. And even sa yung navigation box natin, yung dating right side view naging top view na siya. Kasi kumbaga the way AutoCAD works is whoever is the XY plane, siya yung top view. Okay? So magbabago siya. Pero essentially sa world coordinate system, this is still the right side view. Okay? So that's the easy way to do UCS, or one way to do the UCS. That's the general way to do it, no? Pero sometimes yung some students nahihirapan sila mag-create ng UCS through the UCS command, no? So minsan, let me undo it, no? Ang ginagamit nila is etong visualize, kasi this is also a good way to do it, no? You do visualize, tapos pili lang kayo dito sa coordinates. So again, dito sa top ribbon, visualize. Dito sa coordinates, we can now set it to right side view. Tapos automatic na siya. Although our origin will be located somewhere offset, no? Hindi talaga siya located along the midway point. So minsan useful yun, minsan hindi, okay lang naman. Pwede naman ganito lang siya, no? Pero since our UCS is now located here, pwede na actually tayo mag-drawing along this plane. So, pwedeng vertical na yung pag-drawing natin. Kasi yung coordinate system natin is located dito sa front view na to. Okay? So, that's the easier way to do it. No? Parang pili kayo ng right side view. Um, for now, parang okay na siguro to. Pero parang mas gusto ko yung dati. No? Pero pwede naman i-move natin yung coordinate system na to. Let's move it to the center like that para parang tulad ng kanina. No? Okay? You can move the coordinate system. You know, just click it. Tapos move it away or pwedeng ano no. So hindi naman siya masyadong nagma-matter. Mas maganda lang siya na ano no, na yung origin mo is located at some portion or some endpoint of your object no. It makes it sort of easier. At least for me, it's easier no. Kasi kunwari ito, nandito siya. What I can do is if I create a rectangle, pwedeng ilagay ko yung first point as the 0, 0 na point. Parang ganyan. So, automatic pupunta na siya sa origin. Okay? I think it's faster, no? Pero it depends on you guys. So, create tayo ng rectangle first. This rectangle right here is, ang height niya would be the same height as this one, no? Which is, ano nga ba to? 60. This is 60. So, 60. Tapos, kailangan lang natin mag-input ng isa pang number, which is the length. The length. Can we do math to determine the length? Okay. Sige, kung ano na lang, chat na lang kung may alam kayo, kung na-figure out nyo na yung length, no? Pero I'm looking at it, may isa tayong ginigay dito, 140 daw siya. Minus pa tayo dito, no? It's 140 from this center towards, where is this pointing towards? Sa center ba to or sa... Yeah, I think sa center na kasi nakadikit siya dito. So itong extension line niya is nakadikit dito sa line na to which is also at the center. So at nasa taas lang siya kasi parang ibang plane siya eh versus itong dimension na to which is at the center. So yung center to center distance na to is 140 daw. So we can do the math or baka mas mabilis kung gawa na lang tayo ng line, no? From here, let's draw a line that is 140 tapos 0 degrees. Parang ganyan. So may ano na tayo, no? Location itong kung saan siya dapat mag-end yung center. Tama? Although hindi ito yung center ng circle itself, no? Pero alam natin na yun na yung center to center distance nila. Okay? So mamaya natin i-figure out yun, pero ito, that's the fastest way I think to do it, no? Instead of calculating it na parang 140 minus 68 minus 18 and so or 140 minus 68, yun lang ata yun, 140 minus 68. Hindi ako super sure, pero what I did was create na lang ako ng line equal to 140 pag ganyan. So yun na yung basis ko. So now I can create my rectangle and I'll use snapping na lang yung gagamitin ko dito, no? Or tracking na lang. So I'll track this point, tatrack ko siya. So I have a tracking line and also track this point para pwede mag-intersect yung two tracking lines ko. So that's the way to do it, no? And makikita natin sa previews, it's 72 by 60. Which is tama ba? 72 by 60. 140 minus 68. Is that 72? 72 nga. Tama. Tama, no? If you do calculator. Let's do 140 minus 68. 72. Okay? So, again, that's yung ginamit ko lang dito is hindi na ako nag-compute. Parang create na lang online then using geometry. Just did snapping chord tapos tracking to find the other corner here, no? So that's also a parang effective way of doing things, no? Okay, so I can delete this line parang hindi na siya necessary. So from here I have this one. Create tayo ng a circle and the circle is located at the midpoint here and equal siya dito sa size na to. Tama? And tama din naman kasi 60 siya, so 60 diameter din na siya. Tama, no? Let's do that again para lang mas makita nyo. Ito, kita natin na 30 yung radius niya, which means 60 yung diameter. Okay? Oh, bakit siya nag ano? Yan. Now, let's create the center. Itong nasa center na to. So, let's do at the concentric din siya, no? So, dito. Pwede nyo namang i-hover dito para lumabas yung center or pwedeng sa midway point ng edge na to. So, it's 25 daw yung diameter. So, I'll do D tapos 25. Or you can do 12.5 na radius. Okay? So, okay tayo dyan. And now, we can now press pull, no? So, pwedeng i-clean natin to. I'll just do trim. And minsan yung trim hindi siya nagwo-work pagka masyado kayo zoomed out, no? So notice how pag nag-trim ako dito, sabi daw select object to parang lumalabas tong error symbol, no? So what I found out was pagka masyado pala kayong zoomed out and the my old ES1 students would notice, no? Parang 'di ba? Isa to sa nahihirapan tayo na parang bakit bawal mag-trim pero yung ibang kaklase natin or yung sa akin, parang gumagana naman yung trim. Ang reason pala noon is because naka-zoom out tayo. If we zoom in, parang gumagana na yung trim, no? So, apparently parang by zooming out, masyadong maraming elements siya na hindi na masyadong ma-detect kung ano yung gusto mong gawin, no? Or hindi na masyadong na-detect ni AutoCAD. So, to solve that, just zoom in tapos trim natin to. And we can also trim this, no? Pero bakit nawawala lahat? Anyway, mamaya ko iti-trim yan. If I trim this, ma-retain pa ba yung line? Tama. And let me trim this as well. Yan. Trim. So, that's the profile we want, no? Kasi if we want to press pull now, mas madali na siya. Okay? So, let's press pull first itong parang spine, no? Itong parang spine na to. It's 30, so we can just press pull it 15 to the right and 15 towards us tapos 15 away from us. Tama? So, let's do 15 away. Tapos, rotate natin dito para kita. Let's do press pull again. 15 naman. Punta dyan. Okay? Now, let's do press pull din dito. So, again, I'm selecting the space in between, no? Hindi clicking here because if I click here, hindi kita yung butas. So, dapat, ang gawin natin is, dapat the space or the region in between, no? Tapos, this is, ano ba yan? 50, no? Tama? It's 50. So, dapat 25. 25. Para dito sa kabila. Tama, no? 50 kasi to, eh. So, this is this distance to this distance. So, press pull ulit natin. Last, press pull. This one, press pull natin. Another 25. And now, we have our object, no? Marami tayong guidelines pa na kailangan i-delete, no? Pero, ito, multiple objects pa siya. Again, the same trick we did yesterday, a while ago. And shift ko lang sa world coordinate system ulit, no? Kasi medyo nadi-distract ako sa grid lines. So, yan, para mas malinis siya. Okay? What we did earlier was unionize, no? So, gagawin natin is union. Select all the objects we want to combine. This one. Now, if I select this, this is now just one 3D solid, no? Now, again, para mas malinis siya, let's isolate and hide objects. Let's delete this para wala na tayong guidelines. Delete natin lahat yan. Then we do isolate and object isolation tayo. And let's just double check yung gawa natin. Mukhang tama naman, no? It looks exactly the same as, no? And if you look at the front right top view, kita natin, it's the same. It's the same object. Okay na tayo dyan. Alright. So, this is now our object. We can do layout. Tapos, na-retain pala yung previous na, no? Kasi kumbaga, naka-set to yung model space. Kinuha kasi natin, di ba, nung nag-base tayo, base view, from model space natin kinuha. So, ang nangyari is, in-update niya yung whatever he found, whatever the AutoCAD found in the model space, ginawa niya ulit ng 3D, yung multi-view and isometric view. So, pwede tayong ulitin lang natin just to be sure. From model space, click tayo front view, top view, and masyadong mali ito. Later, i-correct na lang natin to. Just enter. And we can do sa parent view, let's edit this. 1:1 is too large. 1:1.5. Masyadong malaki din. We can do 1:2 siguro. Parang ganyan. Now we can just move this downwards. Ito, move natin to the left. Ito, let's move it here. Tapos ito, correct natin ulit to. Hidden lines ulit tayo. Dapat visible lang to. Okay? And now that's our multi-view. Okay? Alright, sakto. On schedule pa tayo. So this is how we do the modeling, no, of the object. Now from here, we'll have to decide on um, doing the riser system. No? So right now, hindi nyo pa kasi alam masyado kung ano yung mga parts of casting system, no? Tama ba? Na-discuss na ba konti? Introduction, at least an introduction. Ano yung mga parts of a system? Na-discuss ba? Pa-react na lang. May nagsalita ba? So, mukhang hindi pa yata, no? So, sige, i-preview ko lang konti. Pero again, Sir Mark will give you, more details on this. Pero, usually, when we're doing AutoCAD, doing AutoCAD tuloy. When we're doing casting, meron tayong bukod sa casting itself, so we call this as the casting, no? So casting can be the term used for the process as well as the product itself, no? So we generally call this as the casting. Uh, Tapos bukod sa casting, meron din tayong other elements. So we have what we call as the riser. Tapos meron tayong the gating system. The gating system is divided into into two parts, yung runner and yung in-gates. Minsan, hindi na kailangan yung runner, pwedeng in-gates lang diretso. Pero in most cases, parang may runner ka, then from the runner, in-gates. So the way metal flows is, it starts from the pouring cup. You move down the down sprue. Sprue yung tawag natin. The down sprue. And from the down sprue is, mas better siguro if papakita ko ng image, no? Gating system. Okay. Wala siguro. Let's just, So, ganito yung itsura ng isang, medyo pangit lang, pero okay lang yan. If this is your casting, yung final product nyo, you usually have yung the pouring cup or the pouring basin. Then, the metal flows, ito yung liquid metal, pour natin sa pouring basin. It moves to the sprue or the down sprue. Tapos, it enters the choke. The choke is your main control area, no? And this is actually the one that we are calculating for the most part. Kina-calculate to, itong choke area na to. Then calculating the choke area, makukuha nyo yung from the choke area, magpupunta siya sa isang runner. So, choke to the runners. Then from the runners, papasok na siya sa casting through your in-gates or gates. Tapos may certain ratios to mga to, no? So usually itong choke area yung kino-compute natin. Tapos may ratio ang runner to the in-gate, depends on the system you are creating, no? So you can create pressurized system, you can create unpressurized system, depends on the on the metal that you are casting. Tapos from the casting pupunta na siya diyan. Then you have your riser. The goal of the riser is to provide additional metal. So para siyang reservoir. It provides additional metal so that your casting will not experience any shrinkage. In this particular case, yung riser natin is a top riser, no, kasi it's placed on in our casting, on top of our casting. Pero in some cases, pwedeng yung riser natin would be pwedeng side riser siya, pwede din siyang ano pa ba? So top riser, side riser, tapos eto kino-compute din doon, no, yung riser dimensions natin. So Mark will teach you how to compute that, no. Pero ito yung general na gusto natin i-create. Now for now, since wala tayong calculations, pwede tayong mag-estimate lang muna. Pero let me show you an example of yung mga nagawa ko before, and this was done nung nag-training kami on how to use simulation softwares for gating, for casting. And let me just show you some of my calculations, no, para makita nyo. Kasi parang sige, ipakita ko sa iyo to. So, ito yung calculations na ginawa namin. So, this is this is the calculation for the riser. So from the riser, nakuha yung final dimensions, which is this one, no? Yung, um, yung diameter of the riser and the height of the riser. So the riser is almost always a cylindrical shape, no? Kasi yun yung may highest volume to surface area ratio among all the practical shapes. If you think about it, the highest volume to surface area ratio na shape is actually a sphere, pero hindi siya practical na ano, no, na shape for a riser pagka nilagay mo na sa isang casting system, no. um, Kaya ang next best is the cylinder, no. Okay, and ito yung nakuwang the dimensions. And baka pwedeng gamitin natin yung dimensions na to, no, kahit hindi naman siya for this system, no, pero gamitin lang natin as if, kumbaga, let's imagine na ito yung na-compute natin for this system. Then, we have yung area. So, may choke area tayo na-compute. So, this is the choke area. To. And if you have a circular choke area like the one I showed you before, di ba circular yon? Tama ba? Kinlose ko na pala. Pero, di ba, nung nakita nyo yung choke area na yon, ito, let me reopen it. If you look at it, ba't mas malinis na to? Anyway, okay, mas malinaw na to, no? So, makikita nyo na yung choke area natin is circular. So, kaya pwede nyo from the area, compute nyo yung radius. Again, you can do this, no? Compute natin to. Tapos, gating ratio na pinili is 1:6:6. So, this is unpressurized na gating system, no? Tapos, from this gating ratio, pwede na ma-compute yung area ng runner, area ng gate. And pwede din circular yung gates and runners natin, no? Dito, hindi circular yung ginawa niya, pero okay lang yun. Pwede siguro, sige, try natin kung square na gates, no? So, we can do square root instead of, for this exercise, gawin natin square root. So, yan. And we always round up, no? So, 8.5, pwede na itong 8.5. Okay? So, try lang natin. Ito yung gamitin natin. If masyadong malaki, then let me just experiment. 160. Diameter. Circle na diameter of 160. Masyado bang OA? Parang okay lang naman. I think. Kahit hindi siya for this system, no? Sige, okay na siguro to na or kailangan natin i-lower down. Sige, again, hindi ito yung no. I'll just divide ko na lang siya by 1.5 para lang mas manageable dito, no. But again, you'll have to calculate this. And I'll just divide this. Scale down ko lang by 1.5. By the way, kung gusto niyo makita kung ano yung exact, yung what I calculated this for, it's, let me find it, no. It's for this. This one. So, ito ay it's a central riser design, no? So, meron tayong central riser dito sa gitna and ito yung dimensions na to. Tapos, may gating tayo. This one. These are the gates. Hindi pa ata ito yung final. Wait lang, Meron bang kaya mag-open ng step file dito? Naka-step file na pala siya. So, hindi. So, okay na siguro to. STL will be good enough, no? Kahit hindi pa to final. Pero, ito, in this particular case, wala nang runners, no? The runners, the gates are the runners themselves, no? So, from the riser, diretso siya pumasok. And, nandito yung riser natin nag-act as the pouring cup itself, no? Hindi, mas maganda yung ano. Uh, Sige, ito na lang. Open ko na yung DWG file. So, this is the final design, no? You can add colors if you want, no? Dun sa ano. So, ito siya. So, you see that this is the riser. Papasok siya dito. The runner is this one. Small lang yung runner natin. So, this is the first runner. Tapos, from the runner, papasok na siya dito sa ano natin, central riser. Then, kasi side riser kasi to. Tapos, ito na yung in-gates natin. So, puro circular yung ginawa ko dito, no? Pero pwede namang square yung ano. Tapos, the object is this one, no? So, it's a clamp. So, ito siya. This is the clamp. Where's the clamp? So, ito, this is an example of, ano, no? Pagka one object lang yung ginawa natin. So, ito, separate calculation din to. So, this is a side riser. This is the down sprue. Ito yung choke area. This one. Tapos, papasok siya sa onto the riser. Tapos, ito yung runner natin. 2 runners. Tapos, papasok siya sa gates. And so on. And to provide the gating system for this particular clamp. So, this is the clamp. Para siyang ano. Ganyan yung clamp niya. This is the clamp. No? Okay? So, we'll design something like this. Side riser din tayo para mas madali. Ito, multiple lang kasi siya. Kaya, ano. Pero, we'll be designing something like this, no? Try natin ito. Tapos, instead of circular na parang gates, we can do square na gates, no? Para lang may variation. Okay? So, since we're doing this using PLA, so ang gagawin kasi natin is, kung magkakasta tayo is, what do you call this? Lost PLA method tayo. It's okay to use parang complicated designs, no? Kayang-kaya natin create ng complicated na design sa riser system. Wala tayong masyadong pakialam sa ano, no, yung kunwari magte-taper tayo, mga ganyan. Kasi usually in casting, when you are doing this, kailangan kasi i-remove yung pattern, remove the pattern from the molding material, no? So, for us to be able to remove the pattern from the molding material, kailangan may tapers ka and oriented siya in such a way na walang undercuts, no? So, kumbaga, hindi mahaharangan yung pattern from being removed. Like, what I mean by undercuts is, let's do paint. So, just a simple illustration of an undercut, no? So, for example, if this is your molding, if this is your object, kunwari, ito yung object, no? So, there is an undercut. Tapos, ito yung molding material mo. So, this is your pattern. Tapos, let's say, ang molding material mo is sand, no? So, this is all sand na to, nandito. Pwede sigurong i-paint bucket. Yan, puro sand to. Ito yung pattern mo. So, how can you remove this pattern? Paano mo ma-remove itong pattern na to without breaking the sand? Di ba? Imposible siya kasi may undercut ka dyan. So, that's why it's, when we're doing yung mga sand casting or castings that require us to remove our pattern, kailangan carefully natin siyang pag-iisipan. Pero, since ang gagawin natin is the lost PLA method, so the way lost PLA method works is, let's put this back there, no? Hindi natin kailangan i-remove yung pattern kasi ang gagawin actually natin is tutunawin natin tong PLA, yung pattern na to. So, what we do is parang this one, paano i-rotate to? May rotate tool ba dito? Hindi ko alam kung paano nagro-rotate dito. Pero, sa Photoshop ko alam eh. So anyway, eto parang babalik ta rin natin siya. Tapos, may invert ba? Let's see, invert. Rotate mo ito. So, I'll rotate it 180. Parang ganyan. I-rotate. Control Y. Ulitin ko. Rotate invert natin siya. Tutunawin natin tong sample na to. So, PLA. So, kunwari lang, this is our PLA, no? Oop. Tutunawin natin siya. Tapos, ang mangyayari is, dahil matutunaw na to, may iwan na tong cavity na to behind, no? So, if tutunawin natin siya, may iwan na siya dyan. Ang mangyayari is, hindi nyo na problema na yung pagtanggal ng riser. Sorry, not riser. Para matanggal itong mga patterns na to, hindi na siya problema kasi matutunaw naman siya leaving behind the, ano. Okay? So, that's how lost PLA works, no? So, so given that, hindi tayo masyadong concerned sa yung complexity ng design natin, no? Hindi natin kailangan i-simplify yung design para prevent yung mga undercuts, prevent yung ano. So, pwede tayo mag-design as normal lang without any regard for undercuts. Tapos, and our system will still work, no? Okay? So, that's the good thing about lost PLA. Okay? So, let's try to do this. Try lang natin simple, ano. We can... si Sir Mark will teach you how to properly orient it, no? So, it's something to do with directional solidification, mga ganyan and stuff. Pero, for now, I'll just siguro looking at the object, no? The easiest one would be dito ko na lang ilalagay yung sprue. I'll move it here. Move it along this direction and magkakaroon na lang ako ng top riser dito sa part na to. Okay? So, may top riser ako to feed this portion right here. I think that's for this design, no? For why is that so? Kasi meron kasi siyang heat mass. Heat mass yung tawag natin dito, no? A heat mass is a portion wherein meron tayong large na volume to surface area ratio. Heat masses, usually late kasi sila nagsusolidify. So, dahil late sila nagsusolidify, kailangan nila ng extra reservoir. So, dapat ang riser malapit sa kanila para mag-feed yung riser niya ng needed material when it solidifies, no? So, I probably have to place a riser somewhere here, no? So, ididikit ko siya along. Tapos, kaya dito ko siya ilalagay kasi siya yung nakadikit sa ground, no? So, madaling mag-feed ng sprue natin dito. Okay? So, let's try to create it. Hindi ko na gagamitin siguro tong dimensions na to. Sige, try nga natin gamitin yung dimensions na to. Let's estimate this to be 12 yung radius. Let's do 12. Ano mong itsura ng 12 radius? Medyo okay lang. So, let's do 12 radius. Ilalagay natin siya and we'll have to do some guidelines dito, no? Kasi, mahirap so, I'll move my... Pwede kong galawin to. Lagay ko na lang dito sa center yung para mas madali. Okay? Pero bakit siya ulitin ko lang. Let's do world coordinate system. Sige, layo ko na lang siya. Wait lang, naka-UCS pa tayo. So, let's do world coordinate system. Parang ganyan. Okay? Okay na siguro to. Right, tapos ang gagawin natin is, from this base kasi gusto natin dito yung line kung saan mag-move yung natin. So, I'll just track this point. So, I track the quadrant para pwedeng matrack ko siya. So, I'll track the quadrant here. Then, draw a tracking line. And I'll just draw a line first kasi hindi ko pa naman alam kung saan siya mag-end. No? So, kunwari ganyan. Okay? So, this is now where my choke area will reside, no? So, again, para lang may tayo, guideline of yung general itsura niya. I'll just place this image right here, no? Lagay ko lang siya dito off to the side para may idea tayo kung zoom out. At hindi ko sige, okay lang siguro to. Yan. Okay? So, that's my, So, drawing muna natin yung sprue. As much as possible, gusto natin minimal yung distance between the, So, kung ano lang yung needed. So, let's just, I'll just place the sprue here first. 12 yung choke area, kunwari niya. That's my choke area. And, pwede ko siguro ilapit pa siya konti dito, no? Minimal lang kasi yung connection na kailangan natin. So, parang ganyan. So, at this portion, pwede namang estimate lang yung gagawin natin, no? Especially the distances, estimate lang tayo. Now, we'll have to create from this choke area, gagawa tayo ng down sprue. Now, pwede tayong gumawa ng cylinder lang. So, you could say na hindi ba pwedeng gumawa lang ng cylinder or press pull lang natin to. Tapos gawa tayo ng cylinder pataas. Well, pwede naman, no? You can do this, pero the problem here is that hindi magiging laminar yung flow ng material nyo kapag hindi tapered yung down sprue natin. No? Kaya in most cases, yung mga down sprue talaga, meron siyang taper, no? So, ito yung choke area, itong nasa baba dito. Ito actually yung choke area, no? Hindi, although nakasulat na ito yung choke, no? The choke area is actually this one, no? Yung maliit na dimension na to. Kasi yun yung nagko-control kung how much yung effective flow rate mo for the entire casting. It will, kasi dito ka nang galing, di ba? Magpo-pour ka papunta dyan. Etong choke area na to, how large that choke area will control kung gaano kadaming metal ang pumapasok dito in a certain time. And you will compute that, no? So, ito yung gagawin natin. Choke, this is actually the basin, no? The choke is this one. Okay? Pero, pwede siguro general term lang na ito yung choke portion. Okay? Pero ito, this is more of the basin to, no? Or the... Okay. Anyway, mga semantics na yun. Let's create this one. Okay lang naman to, pero again, gusto natin i-taper siya. So, let's taper it by 2 degrees siguro. So, the way we taper it is through, it's in the, this one, the taper face. Pwede ito. Yeah. Let me just experiment. I forgot how this tool works. Axis. 2 degrees. Mali yung ginawa ko. Sige, yeah, tama. Pero at least I know. So, taper faces is, ito yung gagawin natin, itong solid editing. So, we do taper faces. The face that we want to taper is etong face na to. So, we click this face right here. Yan. Tapos, we press enter para maselect yung face. Then, we enter the base point. The base point is kung saan mo gusto mag-start yung taper. Okay? So, I want it to start here. Tama? Or, yeah, I want it to start here. Tapos, next is, specify tayo ng axis along which mag-move yung taper, no? So, specify natin ito. Parang ganyan. So, now we specify the taper angle. Now, it will taper downwards, no? Pero gusto kasi natin na mag-flare upwards to. Itong part na to, gusto natin lumaki. So, we'll input a negative taper, no? Usually, ang taper is somewhere around 2 to 5 degrees. So, let's just do 2 degrees. So, negative 2 degrees yung gagawin natin. So, by tapering it, we have something that looks like this. Parang ganyan. So, this is now our down sprue. And actually, yung sprue height na to should be calculated as well, no? So, alam ko may calculation ako dito eh. So, if you look back at the calculations, where did I calculate it? Area head. Etong head na to, this is the sprue height, no? So, 96. Hindi ko na finalo, pero in-estimate ko lang kasi dito, no? Pero, in your case, pwede naman i-compute nyo to. Now, to create the basin, pwede ang gawin natin is, the basin is essentially, parang, hindi naman kailangan i-compute na itong basin na to. So, we can just estimate. So, let's do a circle. So, let's just make it concentric here, no? If I can find the concentric. Now, we'll move this upwards. Masyado itong malaki yata to. Pero, sige, baka okay na yan. Tapos, ang gagawin natin is, I'll make another circle dito, no, sa portion na to. Kasi I'll use it as a guideline. Kasi I'm not sure if kaya bang mag-create ng The next tool na gagamitin ko mamaya, I'm not sure if kaya ba siyang um, ano no, na gumamit ng yung a face as the other argument to. I think kailangan talaga na two lines. Okay, so let me just hide this no para mas malinaw. Hide objects. So I have two lines. And ito. Now, what I want to do is I want to create um, a surface or a solid that moves from this point to this point. Now, let me just, I don't know, if I can remember the name of the surface, it's loft. Loft pala. Yeah. So, we can access the loft command, no? Loft. Now, let's select two cross sections, this one and this one. And it creates a loft dito. Parang ganyan. So, let's do cross sections only. So, it creates a loft like this. Tapos, ang problem dito is, hindi siya solid, no? Because it's actually a, if you end object isolation, para siyang surface actually to, no? This is a surface. And when you export this as a surface, hindi siya mag-act like a surface, no? So, kailangan natin gawin is, we need to close this surface. So, let's hide this object first. Kailangan natin close tong surface na to, and we call it as a watertight enclosure, no? Para pag watertight siya, pwede na siya ma-convert into a volume. The way we close it is we can do region. Close natin to. Yan, and let's do another region. Close din natin ito. So now, it looks like a solid for now, no? Pero actually, a bunch of surfaces lang siya. So, kailangan natin siyang gamitin yung command na to. This is the convert to solid command. Convert to solid. And let's select the objects, which is this one. And hopefully, if I press enter, yan. Magiging one solid object na siya. Let's do control 1. Hindi pa. Hindi siya na-convert into solid. Ulitin ko nga. Convert to solid. Select objects, this one, press enter. 3 objects cannot be converted. So mukhang hindi siya watertight, no? I'm not sure kung bakit hindi siya watertight. Wait lang ah. Baka I think this should be watertight, no? Or let's try the other command, surf sculpt. Select surfaces of solids to sculpt into solids. So let's do this one. Into solid. Ayan, for some reason mas gumana yun, no? But con to solid should be also viable, no? Pero if you look at this now became a solid, no? Okay? So the command is surf sculpt, no? So again, these are 3 surfaces. Meron tayong surface na to. We have a loft surface, tapos meron tayong 2 regions. Okay? So ang ginawa ko is I did surf sculpt. Yun yung command. So what the surf sculpt does is you select surfaces with watertight surfaces. Then if you press enter, ang mangyayari is it converts those watertight surfaces into one single solid, no? So if you look at the properties, one solid na siya. Okay? So isolate, end object isolation. That is now parang complete na, no? May basin na tayo. May downspool na tayo. Then pwede tayo magdagay ng itong area na to, no? I forgot the exact term. Parang basin din nata yung pangalan. I can't remember the term right now, no? Pero meron siyang specific term dito, no? Para itong sa bottom part, para lang mag-improve yung laminar flow niya. Pero essentially, the choke area is still this area right here. Okay, so let's create this one. For that, we can just create a normal cylinder, no? Pwedeng cylinder, normal cylinder, CYL, cylinder. Pwede rin naman circle then extrude, pero it will be easier if I can find the but hindi ko mahanap yung circle. Wait, hover, nawawala. I'll turn off dynamic UCS, no? Dynamic UCS is used para automatic i-detect niya yung faces mag-change yung UCS based on those phases, no? So, for now, feeling ko siya yung siya yung create ng confusion, no? So, that's why hindi rin useful na enable nyo lahat ng options na makikita nyo. Minsan kailangan nyo i-disable siya para hindi siya mag-interfere with what you want, no? So, I want to create a cylinder here. Probably siguro ganyan lang. Again, I'm just estimating here. Then I wanted to create a depth of ata ang tawag dito. I think that's the term, no? Well ata yung tawag. Okay, so this is my well. Parang ganyan. And from the well, gusto natin na mag-create tayo ng gate papasok dito. So, ano yun, na-compute natin kanina. We computed, itong estimate lang, no? 5.6. So, let's just do 6 by 6 kunwari. So, we can do, easiest way to do this is to do a box siguro, no? Box. And we'll have to change it to the front view, no? So, visualize front view tayo kasi we're doing it from this front view right here. So, we do box 6 by 6 6 by 6. Tapos, i-extend lang natin probably mga ganyan. Then, let's move this box. I'll use the move command. And gusto ko yung center ng box na to would match gusto ko i-move siya by the center para pwede ko ilagay siya dito, no? Parang at this quadrant right here. Sapat na ba to? And okay lang mag-overlap siya, no? Kasi pag nag-union tayo, mako-correct naman yan. Pero mukhang kulang to, no? Kailangan ng konting extension pa. Like so. We can taper some of the portion. Ito, medyo pangit pa to, class, no? Kasi kumbaga ang daming harsh edges dito. Usually, we want to taper it. And you can, siguro, kasi mauubusan na tayo ng time, no? 11:28 na pala. Pero, you can explore. There are other ways. Pwede kayo mag-fillet ng edges. Pwede din kayo mag-taper ng edges. So, fillet edge is just this one. Kunwari, ito. I-fillet niya ng ganyan. So, instead of let's do fillet edge. So, if I want to select this edge, mangyari is, instead of a hard edge, parang naka-taper yung edge na to, no? Taper edge. So, it's a way to, no? And it works on, kahit cylinders, kunwari ito, you fillet your edge here. Parang ganyan. That becomes a rounded off na cylinder, no? So, hindi siya totally necessary. Pero, if you want to improve the, pag yung final product nyo, hindi masyadong maraming sharp edges, pwede naman i-fillet nyo yung some of the edges, no? Especially itong mga gates natin. Needs ng, So, this is a bottom gate ang tawag dito, no? Because it's feeding from the bottom and it moves up. Maganda dito is that it's laminar yung flow niya, no? Kasi smooth yung flow niya from down dito, pupunta siya dito, it feeds upwards papunta dito, making it a very smooth flow as opposed to a top gate wherein yung top gate naman pagka kunwari, I'll just move this upwards. Kunwari ganyan. A top gate will look something like this. Obviously, i-move din to lahat, no? Pero a top gate would look like this. If-feed nyo from the top. Pero ang problema dyan, it introduces turbulence, no? Kasi imagine, from here, papasok dyan, sobrang turbulent yan. So, sige, ko lang to. Let me just show you. This is an example of a top gate. Sobrang pangit to, no? And I won't recommend using a top gate kasi pag ganito, papasok siya dyan, sobrang laki ng turbulence pag pumasok na yung metal dito, no? So, I always recommend the bottom gate. Bottom gates usually work the best, no, for laminar flow. Pero mas marami ka lang excess metal, no? Okay? So, that's how you do the we can do one in gate lang. One in gate, papasok dyan. Parang ganyan. And then, we can do the riser, no? So, let's say, for example, we do the riser. Usually, we want it to be symmetrical. So, we can place the riser somewhere here. Let's do UCS ulit. Let's do world coordinate system ulit para yung circle natin. Let's just say na yung riser na na-compute natin is something like that. Okay? So, or dapat pala, instead of a circle, I'll just do diretso cylinder na, no? And this needs to be computed. So, based on your computation, kunwari, usually we want a stout riser, no? Ito, pangit to na riser because this riser has masyado siya matangkad, no? So yung volume to surface area ratio niya is too small such that hindi na siya magsa-serve yung purpose niya as a riser, no? Kasi dahil masyado siyang maliit, o masyado maliit yung volume to surface area ratio niya, ang mangyayari is magko-cool siya fast. And gusto mo kasi last to cool yung riser mo kasi you want it to be as hot as possible. Siya yung last to cool para siya yung magpo-provide ng reservoir of molten metal to the areas that need them. So in our case is, inimagine ko kasi ito yung heat mass natin. This will require a riser, no? So something like that. So this is a simple, ano lang, no? Siguro mabilisang casting design lang, no? And means madalas or most of the parts inestimate ko lang, pero again, you'll be taught how to calculate this portion, pero this is what we will do, and kailangan i-union natin to lahat, no? Kasi this will be printed out as one pattern. So let's union it. So this is now our final simple design. So we have a pouring basin, downscrew, papasok siya dyan. Pasok siya dito sa gate na to. Probably undersized itong gate na to, no? Pero kailangan yan i-recalculate. Pasok siya dyan. Dito, we have one riser para lang dito sa ano na to. You can opt to have another riser na ano, no? Tulad ng pinakita ko kanina. Nung yung more complicated design. Like this. Pwede namang complicated yung riser design, ano? And this one is meron pa siyang additional parang flange para ma-improve yung volume to surface area ratio, etc. etc. So you can have things like that, no? Ito mga other iterations ng design. Yeah, so maraming ways to improve the design and to go about it, pero essentially for doing the risers and the down screws is just a matter of creating cylinders. Usually cylinders yung shape nila, tapos gates could be either rectangular prisms or pwede din mga cylindrical na mga tubes din sila, no? So it's up to you kung ano yung choice nyo, and you can ask Sir Mark din kung ano yung pwede kayo mag-consult din sa kanya, no? Kung ano yung best na design for it, no? Okay? Tapos may mga ano pa yun, different na considerations, like for rangy castings, kailangan multiple ingates. For blocky castings, okay lang na one ingate. This is a blocky casting, kaya feeling ko sapat na tong one ingate na to, no? If rangy, yung casting rangy meaning parang mas flat siya, something like this. This is a rangy casting, no? This rangy casting right here requires multiple ingates kasi kung one ingate lang hindi niya ma-feed lahat. So that's why 3 ingates yung ginawa niya dito. Okay? So, I think yun lang siguro muna for 3D AutoCAD. That's how we do our AutoCAD design. Tapos after nito, last step na pala. If you have this one, ang gagawin na lang natin is home, punta tayo sa file, dito sa AutoCAD na symbol. Then we want to export this. Export as, usually we pick other formats. Tapos ang pipiliin natin na format is STL, no? So kunwari, let's just put it in the desktop. Sabihin ko lang 177.1 STL. So let's save it as an STL file, and let's view the STL file. You need to save it as an STL file kasi yun yung nababasa ng 3D printing software, no? So, let me open yung ginawa natin. STL file, ito siya. So, ito yung ginawa natin ngayon. So, it kind of looks nice. Okay lang na siya. So, you can view it. So, yun. Right? And by the way, ito, may hollow portion tayo. Usually may core pa tayong nilalagay dyan, no, if it's done by sand casting. Pero again, since ang gagawin natin ngayon is lost PLA, okay lang na may ganito, no? Kasi this portion will be filled by the molding material, which is plaster. Tapos leaving behind yung etong cavities lang na to. Okay? So again, ang ginawa ta last year was wax, no? Lost wax yung ginamit nila. So, instead of doing 3D printing, kinarve out nila to. Parang handmade ng student, no? Parang may wax sila, wax bar. Tapos, using, parang knife, nag-carve out sila ng shape nila, yung riser, yung etc. etc. Pwede naman yun yung gawin natin, no? If ayaw nyo mag 3D model. Pero since may modern tools na tayo, no, why not use the modern tools? Ano tayo? 3D print tayo. Then after 3D printing, i-ano natin siya. I-melt natin yung 3D printed part. Okay? So, it's 11:36. Before I end, meron ba tayong questions? Malinaw ba? At least na-imagine nyo ba yung overall, yung general flow ng gagawin natin for this experiment? Okay naman? Okay? So again, we 3D model. After that, send natin sa 3D printer. We have 3D printers by the way sa depth, no? I think may 3D printers din sa Englive 2 ata or sa TLC. Parang naalala ko meron daw ganun eh. Tapos after 3D printing, i-pack natin siya with molding material, plaster in our case. Then after that, melt natin yung 3D printed material leaving behind the cavity. Then magka-cast tayo. Aluminum ata yung gagamitin natin for the casting. Okay. So, thank you for coming in, everyone. I think there are no more questions in the chat. Tapos marami ding nag-thumbs up na, no? So, thank you for coming in. Tapos, I'll see you next week na siguro. Hopefully, wala lang transport strike, no? Shay, may gusto ka bang sabihin sa mga students? Or reminders for them? Wala naman daw, sabi ni Shay. Okay, so, thank you everyone and let's end the meeting right now. Stop ko na yung recording din.